Yes, yes, y'all. It is Koku here today. We are celebrating episode 205 of Shoot the Breeze, a segment of the Bitter Medicine podcast. I want to thank everyone who has been participating the last few weeks, whether I'm here or I'm not here, whether Jackadero's the host or not. I appreciate you guys coming through. I also appreciate you guys who have answered the call, join the Discord, and you're posting your topics with a prompt and an attachment that's either X, Twitter, YouTube, what have you, Instagram, what have you. So I thank all of you. Shout out to Daily Affirmations by Pauline saying good evening. Good evening to you, my dear. Thanks for coming through. So shout out to you guys for that. Keep them coming. Shout out to the matron who's also in the chat saying greetings, everyone. Thank you, matron, for being here. Make sure you guys are tuned in to the matron. I think she's back again on Tuesday, continuing her reading. So make sure you guys are tuned into our matron. With that said, I'm going to give a tease here, but I have a Patreon coming up. It's time I get a little bit serious. And I'll be honest, it's time that we all get a little bit serious. You know, I think about Brother Bakari, some of his teachings often. He was on earlier this morning. Make sure you guys are tuned in and checking out Brother Bakari, the BBN network. And, you know, he talks about hold your black dollar. And the thing that I'm finding interesting is that I think black people are holding their black dollar and they're holding it from other black people. We got to change that. And us here, have to be the change for that. Us here who say we are Pan-African, we're Garveyites, Black nationalists, etc. We got to be the ones to change that mindset. We got to start putting forward our efforts monetarily. It doesn't have to be big. So I have a Patreon coming where I'm going to have different content, still centered around Pan-Africanism, still centered around Garveyism, but it's going to be there for you guys to partake in if you so choose to. Oh, man, a few people have come in. Arthur, check out that brother, musician, Arthur. He's here saying blessings. War Drum is saying, what's up, my people? But Bakari is saying peace and black African power. D-Web is out there. You guys know who D-Web is. He says, peace, fam. Hope everyone is well. Make sure you guys are tuned into D-Web's project, Hip Hop Roundtable. Make sure you guys, especially if you're a hip hop head, tune in to Hip Hop Roundtable with D-Web and the rest of his crew. Trigabi 262 Plus says peace, peace. I appreciate all of you guys being out there and letting people know you're in the chat. Real quick before we start the show officially, on tonight's edition of Shoot the Breeze 205, we're going to look at a scenario and question if it's racism or a skill issue. We're going to talk about how one individual helped expand slavery. We're going to try to answer the question, is Umar Johnson on that stuff? Have you guys seen this? Anyway, is Umar Johnson on that stuff? We're going to talk about African naming systems as explained from a Yoruba perspective. Lastly, we're going to talk about could Ibrahim Traore, end up being like Museveni, Bobby Wine's historical analysis of the young revolutionary. So we're going to talk about that today as well. The Asperger says that it's skill. War Drum gives us the RBG. He says it's always skill. I don't know about that, but we'll talk about it. Provide triggers for evolution is out there saying good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, my dear. I hope you're free this evening to partake in the episode with us. The link should be pinned to the top of the chat. Anyone who's Black equals African can join the panel. Just click that link, join the panel, and you too can have your thoughts heard. Shout out to Jackadero. He's at an event tonight. getting some information for his organization that we shout out here every time he hosts, especially. But shout out to all of you. What we're going to do right now is start the show officially. And on the other side, I'll drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, as well as introduce any and all panelists. So do stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. We are back. Make sure to hit the like button for me. Afro-Native World says greetings, all greetings to you as well, sir. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to share the show in social media. That's the part that I think we don't do well with either. We're not sharing content like we should. It's almost like we're embarrassed to say, hey, I support this effort over here. Why don't you check it out as well? Yeah, make sure you guys share the show, hit the like button, and invite some folks to come over and check out what we're doing here. I have no panelists with me yet tonight, so I guess I'll do this first one at least on my own. It's all good. Should raise topic number 1 is this racism or a skill issue? Arthur had some thoughts. I'll get back to his thoughts in a second. But in the meantime, let's check out this video. Now, I gotta say, this is from ABC News. They tend to block stuff a lot. And the thing is, I kind of want you guys to see it, but I'll take the chance. We'll watch the video, and then we'll discuss it. If it plays.
When the next hurricane will hit, so your home's best defense is being prepared year-round with StormSmart. Act now to save your home from disaster. StormSmart has a proven track record of hurricane protection solutions that save your home and your peace of mind. Since
team has investigated a lot of complaints involving HOAs and how they use their power, but we've never seen anything quite like this.
Yes, so the woman in the smug shot right here wanted us to tell you her story, and she wanted us to show you her mugshot. She was arrested and spent a week in jail for what started out as an HOA complaint over her lawn.
I feel humiliated about the whole thing. You know, like I kind of got my head down because this is so embarrassing.
Well, tonight, investigative reporter Adam Walser there revealing how she wound up behind bars and caught up with the HOA's attorney to ask about his involvement.
This is what they were showing in court, like pictures of the brown grass.
Yep.
The grass isn't always green in Irina Green's yard, thanks to a big tree that you can see in this drone video, and a drought that led the county to impose watering restrictions last year didn't help.
Looks like you got some pieces of sod here.
Green says her yard is far from the worst in Riverview's Creekview subdivision.
If you drive around my neighborhood, you'll see there's plenty of yards that are not up to par.
But so far, she's the only homeowner to actually go to jail for failing to keep her yard up to her HOA standards. It all started with notices from the HOA's management company.
And it went from the grass being brown to, there's a dent in my garage.
Dents too small to see from the road.
That was a part of my court case.
Green was also cited for having a dirty mailbox covered in mildew due to shade and moisture from that same tree.
I would assume you could probably clean that whole mailbox in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
And for having a cargo van similar to other ones we observed in the neighborhood. The HOA filed a lawsuit against Green in Hillsborough County Court, demanding she correct the violations. She represented herself, preparing handwritten explanations that the HOA and judge rejected. Green appeared at a hearing last July in which the judge gave her an ultimatum.
My grass had to be brung up to par. He said, you can get seeds, you can do something, but you got 30 days to get it corrected. I said, fine. And he said, and if it's not done in 30 days, you're going to go to jail.
Irene says she spent the next month correcting the violations.
I sold my van to comply. My mailbox was clean. I bought seeds and watered my grass.
But she missed her next court date.
I was supposed to receive documentation. Nothing was sent to my home. And I reached out to the courthouse several times to try to find out when was my court date.
The judge signed an order holding Green in contempt of court and issued a warrant for her arrest at the HOA attorney's request.
It is pretty extreme. It certainly is, yeah.
We asked Stetson Law Professor Paul Boudreau what he makes of this case.
I think it's pretty rare in a civil case for someone to have a contempt order.
Green was pulled over by a sheriff's deputy in late May after picking up her 15-year-old daughter from cheerleading practice.
When I got out, he said, Ms. Green, do you know that you have a warrant for your arrest?
She was taken to the Orient Road Jail.
If they got you handcuffed behind your back?
Yes. I'm treated like a criminal.
At the jail, she got more bad news.
There was no bond, so I couldn't even go home to my family. I sat in there for 7 days. 7 days in the jailhouse, like a criminal.
To be incarcerated without bond is certainly an extreme measure and is pretty rare.
Now, there's a mugshot of you right now.
Yep.
How did that make you feel, just to be put in those orange clothes?
It makes me feel horrible. Like I work hard. I work hard to buy this home, for me and my kids in a better neighborhood and environment, and to be taken to jail and to be treated like that for brown grass at my own home, it's horrible.
David Lair is a Palm Beach attorney who represents homeowners in cases against HOAs. His law partner wrote the best-selling book, Bad HOA.
You have an HOA who was quick to go after her and to use the full force that they're entitled to.
Have you ever heard of it getting to this point where someone actually goes to jail?
I have not seen that. To be clear, the association does not have the power to put you in jail. Certain other events intervened. Certainly, the judge had the right to do it. I think perhaps there could be more lenient remedies.
Green's sister-in-law, who is a paralegal, filed a petition 6 days after she was incarcerated, requesting an emergency hearing.
And I went to court, and I had to be shackled from my hands to my feet.
And you're there in civil county court, right?
Yeah.
You're the only one wearing orange, right?
Yeah, the only one.
Green's relatives sent pictures of the yard and other evidence to the judge, a different one than the judge who issued the arrest warrant. Green says an attorney for the HOA opposed her release.
He says, well, it hasn't been resodded. The whole yard needs to be resodded. And she's like, not from those pictures that I see. She's like, no, I want her released immediately.
So you were going to sit in jail while they resodded your yard?
He wanted me to continue to sit in jail and not come home to my family.
Green was released on the judge's order.
I'm Adam. I'm with ABC Action News.
We caught up with Creekview HOA attorney Francis Frischia, the one who asked for the arrest warrant outside his office.
Do you think that was kind of harsh to have her spend 5 days or 7 days, I believe, in jail?
I have no comment, but I'll email you on that.
He emailed us a statement saying in part, quote, Ms. Green received notices of violations. She disregarded them. Ms. Green failed to show up in court on August 19th. Her failure to abide by the court's instruction led to the arrest warrant being issued. We called and left a business card at the Creekview HOA president's home, and we called and emailed the HOA's property management company, which issued the violations. We didn't hear back from either. Legal experts say there are lessons to be learned.
Sometimes they act in a petty manner, but if they decide that you need to do something, you need to follow the rules. And when a judge tells you to do something, you have to do it.
I think that they have way too much power. I mean, I never heard of anything like this in my life.
My team investigator Adam Walser with photojournalist Matt McGlashan taking action for you.
Wild story there. The HOA board recently hired a new property management company to enforce its regulations, which started last month. Now, our Adam Walsler has been investigating homeowners associations and everything that comes with them all over the Tampa Bay area for several years now. We want to know, are you in a battle with your HOA, or do you feel your HOA is not listening to you? Well, we are here to listen. Scan this QR code at the bottom of your screen to reach out to our iTeam tip line. Your message will be sent directly to Adam to investigate your concern.
So I think that I do believe that the prompt is a little bit tongue in cheek for those who are asking about what's the skill that was required here. The skill, if you go by the story, is again tongue in cheek, I think, but it's having a green thumb. It's the ability to keep or the upkeep of a lawn according to some rules that this housing area has. After says what skill was supposed to be had, judge could just be a dick regardless of race. Judge is a dick, can't call him racist. And by the way, shout out to Forecast, who's out there, and I hope I didn't miss anyone. Kofi, the Black Critic, shout out to you guys as well for joining. But most of you, like Matron and a few others, said, well, it's straight up racism. Here's the thing. I'll just add my old 2 cents here. Here's the thing. You got to understand, these judges in most of these places are voted in, right? You have this housing, what do you call it again? You have this housing community that does have its rules, etc. And his job or her job as a judge is to enforce these rules. And when they go after a black woman like this, let's be clear, they're trying to get her up out of the community. That's all that's going on here. She said something interesting. She said, you know, she works hard, etc. It felt bad being in the orange jumpsuit. But she tried to have a better place, so to speak, for her children. And you know, that's the part that gets us in trouble. Because when we think a better place, we tend to think, well, if you go around white folks, you'll have a better standard of living. But they got the rules in these little places to get you up out of there. Now, after she spent 7 days in a prison, who knows what could have happened to her in 7 days, right? Is she really going to want to stay there much longer? By the time they throw another little incident, a little hissy fit at her, she's not going to want to stay there. They would have won that because they control the rules, they control the judge and all that kind of thing. So you got to look at that as racism. There's no other way to look at it. However, one of the things we should be talking about as well is we should be talking about solutions. Where is the black gated community for her to have gone where she felt it was a better lifestyle for her and her children? Where we probably wouldn't have taken her as far as a court and seen her end up in jail for 7 days. I think that's the thing we got to think about. Before we start talking about it, though, let's introduce our panelists so far tonight. We got Buana here with us. Buana, how are you this week?
Coco, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm good, brother. I hope you good. Black Steel, I'm hoping you're good as well.
Yes, sir. Thanks for that. Thanks for being here as always, Buana. Let's welcome in our brother Bakari. How are you this week?
Everything is everything, my brother.
Cool,
Everything
cool.
is good. How your pops? How your pops?
He's stable right now. But still trying to push him to kind of get up out of this situation,
Yeah.
But thanks. Last but not least, Black Steel, how are you this week?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Another day in paradise. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for asking, and thanks for being here as well. With that said, where should I start with this? There's a lot of comments. I'll get to some of those in a second. But Buana, let me start with you on this one. Buana, what are your thoughts? Is this racism or a skill issue?
No, it seems to be some racism. I don't know how. Where is he? What state is she in? What state?
Good question. Let me look it up while you talk.
She was in Florida.
Okay, so I'm knowing that in different HOA agreements there are different things inside there. So I don't know how the Florida state work in terms of the housing associations. If I was reading a housing association document, I would have to see whether I could be put in jail based off of how my lawn is. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And I've never heard such a thing. Because my lawn is set up a certain way, I should be maybe penalized where you issue me some kind of tax or lien or penalty or something, but send me to jail, give me a custodial sentence because of how my lawn is cut. That's unheard of. If you look at the history of this housing association, I would have to see whether anyone was sent to jail based on their lawn not necessarily being cut in a certain way. How should my lawn be cut? Yeah, I'm moving into a housing association, so they're telling me now you should keep your yard a certain way. So now I'm cutting my grass. So now they come in and tell me, oh, it shouldn't be cut that way. And since you cut it that way, I'm gonna send you to jail. This is ridiculous. I don't know who our attorney is. She needs to be crying from the rooftops. And I know they're trying to use lawfare. There's this term now where President Trump uses lawfare to get the things that he wants. And these people are trying to use lawfare to get this lady out of this community. But she needs to get some lawyers in there. She needs to make some more noise. I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that. Yeah, me personally, this may seem sexist. I'm asking because she was with that dude. I'm like, why wasn't he sent to prison? But needless to say, I just think that anyone trying to get into a housing community or any kind of community like that, read thoroughly through the documents you're signing on to, because I would have never thought, maybe Black Steel could let me know. I would have never thought that you could get sent to prison based off of how your lawn is set out. That is absolutely absurd. Never heard such a thing. So I do believe it has to do with racism. I do believe they're trying to get a out of that community. And I do believe that they're using the lawfare along with the judge, to get it out of that community. But I'm curious to hear, since it's in Florida, what Black Steel has to say about it. I'll leave it there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Brother Bakari, is this racism or a skill issue? What say you?
I would say it's racism putting her in jail, but I'm gonna tell you something, man. I've seen worse than that. See, what happened is when you go into these HOAs, the people who live there, they're never over the HOA. It always some on the outside. You know, HOA can put a lien on your house and sell your house, and a lot of the time that's what they want to force her to leave. You ain't gonna know it was somebody from that HOA that bought that house and resell it. But those are the things they do. She went to jail. That was a horrible thing. But like I said, actually knew a couple of people that had liens put on their home, and it was taken from them because they didn't live by the HOA rules. But a bigger issue, what you said, is how we think going to live somewhere around the people that have done the things that they have done throughout their history, dealing us, how they can always get a pass. It's better if I live next to them. So I need to go over there, because what we would talk about is the drugs or the drive-bys, wherever where we live, the violence. But we absolutely forget about the violence, and we forget about their violent history. We forget about their drug usage and their drugs. We forget because they get a pass and we don't. That's why when I did my live today, when I said, how do we see ourselves? We see ourselves less than. They have a superiority complex. We have an inferiority complex. So we continue to run to these places, and we will continue to go through these things. Sad thing, she went to jail. It was a sad thing that I knew people that had a lien put on their home for not living by the HOA rules. But when we don't want to live somewhere and create our own rules and control what part of our destiny that we can, these will be the things that we will continue to go through. And on that, I yield the mic.
I appreciate it. Earlier when Bakari entered the stream, he talked about something very interesting. He talked about the Ozarks. I think that's in Michigan, in rural Michigan. And he talked about how some white folks recently decided to get some land and just make it like whites only land. And there's black folks who are upset about that. About let them people go where they want to go. It's for you to go make your blacks only land. And that's the problem I have with the situation that we're in America. Before I go to Black Steel, let me read some comments in the chat. What's up, the forecast? Matron says it's racism. Arthur says incarcerated without bond is wild. He comes around and says it's racism. I don't see any skill issue here. The matron says HOAs are the devil. You're paying them to punish you. Forecast says they was trying to send her a message. Definitely racism. Kofi the Black Critic says, what's up? After said he says why I say it's a skill issue is because it's a skill to avoid these people. It's a skill to float under the radar. I can't argue with that too much. After I get your point. Wardrum says her yard wasn't the worst, and other people had vans. That's the thing I took from it too. There was other yards that were bad, had vans similar to hers, but she got singled out. I wonder why. Wardrum says pure racism. After says you can waste your time arguing why it's not fair. Someone said it's racism. It's always going to be racism. The place has racism baked in the pie. Can't fight that too tough. But that doesn't mean you can't call it out. Like Buana said some years ago on Shoot the Breeze, you got to throw the stone, right? Kofi says some Negroes, this voting means nothing. KW7, shout out to KW7. He says it doesn't look like she had the covering and protection of a man. I think that's something to be discussed a bit as well. Shirley Easy is out there saying what's up. D Webb says my personal dealings with HOA in Florida, it's all about money. If you have the money to legally fight back, it really don't matter your color. They can put a lien for garbage cans placed in the wrong spot. That's one thing they didn't mention, how she went to court and produced documents of her own without a lawyer, and they just summarily rejected her, which is interesting also. Afro Native World quotes, housing bylaws, HOA bylaws, typically do not involve prison time, while violating HOA rules can lead to consequences such as fines or other penalties. Arrest is not a typical outcome for most violations. A matron offering a solution. Have some racial pride and create a black community with rules enforced by black people. Sounds just like what Brother Bakari was talking about as well. I guess Wardrum corrected me. He said Arkansas. My bad. I thought it was in rural Michigan. My bad. It's in Arkansas. KW Don said the same thing. With that said, man, and by the way, thanks to the chat for all your responses. Let's keep that going throughout the night. With that said, Black Steel, what are your thoughts about everything you've seen and heard here tonight?
Well, first of all, thanks for everybody's contribution to the topic. And thank you, Coco, for picking up on my tongue-in-cheek title for this, because there is no skill issue, right? They're trying to say her grass wasn't good or her van, all the other things. And so this story comes from out of my area. And I found out after looking at this story on the news that lawyer for her HOA is the same lawyer for my HOA. So apparently he governs all the HOAs in the area, right? There are certain rules, but the enforcement of those rules is really up to the board. So that's one thing I want to say. So, for example, she mentioned how basically she saw people who had worse than hers. Basically, because they want this woman out. Long story short, like Bakari was saying, they want this woman out of there. So they enforce the rules. They harass certain people, right? Whereas other people, like, I got a letter one time for having some weeds in my flower bed. And there's a dude down the street who has grass high enough to hide a tiger. He's not getting anything in the mail, or he's not getting fined or punished. But again, it's a complexion for the protection. So it's definitely a racism. It reminds me of the housing covenants that existed, previously in the 20th century. White people would create homes and they would have housing covenants where no one was allowed to sell a home to a black person or a Jewish person, so on and so forth. So what these homeowner associations do, because outright discrimination in housing has been outlawed, they find a way around it by creating these homeowners associations with these rules that they can arbitrarily enforce. And that's really what has happened with this woman. She is married. There's another story to show her with her husband and kids. So she is married. But just overall, this HOA is being used as a way to remove individuals from the community that they don't want to have there. And if I'm sorry, my dog's acting a fool. If they did want to create a hold on a second. If they did want to create an all-black housing development, that would quickly be declared illegal, right? So you said, well, only black people can live here. Like you mentioned the this thing in fucking Arkansas. If it came, black people don't really want to live around these crackers, first of all. But if it came down to it, it would be found to be illegal. You can't legally discriminate against somebody like that. Black people just don't want to live up in the mountains, which I can't really blame them. But if black people were to say, hey, we just want all black development, then you can't only, that would be quickly be found illegal. Another thing too, with this HOA, basically you're paying these people to harass you. So the thing about HOA is that you can vote them out too. But the idea, she didn't get sent to jail for the grass. She got sent to jail for contempt of court because she missed her court date. But she said she never received notice of her court date. So the idea was that she was sent to jail not so much on the grass, but the fact that she didn't return to her court date after she had fixed everything. Then to compound that, they wanted to leave her in jail. So imagine she'd already spent 7 days in jail. They wanted to leave her in jail until her grass was up to code. Now, you guys may not know the weather around here. It was the grass they're pointing out being brown or whatever. It's during a drought. And we have restrictions on when you can and can't water your grass. So this woman was definitely singled out because, of course, her grass was going to be discolored because we're in the middle of a drought. But yet they're still holding her to these rules. So to me, it's definitely a racism issue. And the HOA serves the purpose of the housing covenants of the past. And the problem is that most new homes that you're going to get are going to have an HOA. 70% of all new housing is within an HOA because it serves to, keep the neighborhood the way they want to make it look. And they may get one or two of us in there, but the HOA is meant to kind of preserve the racial, problem. The solution, first of all, your HOA can be disbanded. If the majority of the residents can get together and vote, they can disband that HOA with no problem. It's happened before, but I believe that it would have to take some unity within and some skilled organization to get that done. So those were my thoughts on that. Thanks, Kofi.
Appreciate that. Juan, you wanted to follow up anything that Black Steel had to say because you was curious about what he had to say about it.
Yeah, even if it's a contempt of court issue, a judge, well, like I say, you get these bomber judges, and they are trying to practice lawfare because this is a woman who, first of all, she's a working woman. She is a mother of a few children. Why would you issue her a custodial sentence to take her away from all that in terms of punishing her because she missed a court date? Now, I would have to. I think that she is wrong in going about the business. Well, maybe not, but she's not a lawyer. But I would advise people to get somebody who could speak on their behalf, because the first question I would ask is, where are the notice papers? Because she was talking about being on court on a specific date. So obviously the notice papers wasn't filed. She didn't receive them. So that's the issue that I would bring up. Where's the papers itself? Show me some documentation that I would have signed off on the notice on where I need to appear before court. I need to have some more information. Who's the server? And I need some more information to work with. So maybe I'm missing a few facts in terms of exactly what happened, but I have a big issue because in the Bahamas we had covenant laws where blacks could only live in certain areas and whites could only live in certain areas. Could you imagine such a thing in a country full of black people? They had covenant laws like that's insane. That's insane. But since Black Seal said that they could be voted out in the United States, I would just seek to try to get rid of it because there's probably a bunch of Karens and male Karens, being on a part of those boards. So you need to get some people in there who is not as strict and racist because this is ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, but that's my thoughts, Koku.
In the 80s, there was a hurricane coming. My uncle was what we call a hacker. And he was going to deliver some plywood to an area called Lightfoot Key, if you don't know the Bahamas. And a black boy who was a guard that stopped us with a gun and was like, where y'all think y'all going? I'll never forget that, man. That's in my own hometown. Right? So yeah, these areas, that kind of stuff happens.
Notice, folks. What he say? He say a black guard, a Bahamian black guard, was trying to stop other black folks from going to certain areas at gunpoint. And you know what? He would have killed them if they would do something. Lord have mercy. Wow. All right, Koku. I'll leave it.
Yeah, I know.
That's insane. That is insane.
That stuck with me till now. That stuck with me. I was in the 80s. KW Don says the white nationalists are looking to expand to Missouri for all white towns also. After says, keep the property value up by keeping it white. Logical, diabolical. He goes on to say, I'm sorry for what she went through. I've had to be in court. It weighed on my life. It was a weight over my head. She said she inquired and never heard back from them. The area is not an all white area, it's a rich area, but so it's mostly white. But yeah, that guy stopped us, but we don't think you're all good. Okay, my bad. And my uncle was hired to deliver that plywood too, because people use plywood to like cover their windows and all that kind of stuff. And he was hired to come bring that. That boy said, "We all good." Yeah. So that's interesting stuff. Now Cheryl asks a question here. I'll let Black Seal answer it since he's familiar with the area. She says, "I'm curious on the demographic of the neighborhood." Now I have an idea what it is, but Black Seal, you have any insight on that?
It's mainly white and Latino. Lot of his Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, white people, and I'd say it's probably about 25-35% black. Most of the black people live in area. Bakari knows the Progress Village. That's mainly the black area, but although that area is being highly gentrified, but it's if you consider Latinos to be a minority, it's a majority minority neighborhood. Many Hispanic people live out there. So, but there's a decent amount of black people in there too. So it's not uncommon to see African black people out there.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not uncommon to see black folks out there. Okay. Cheryl says, boom, there you go. First problem. With that said, we got our brother Kofi joining us. Kofi, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. This was a very, very good, heart-wrenching topic. And wow, it's just wow. I have family in Tampa. They don't live in the subdivision, so they don't need an HOA fee. But I personally don't live in the subdivision. I have my mother used to live in a subdivision, and yeah, when you put out your garbage cans, it has to be on this side of the road, not that side of the road. You can't put it out too early. You can't put it out too soon. You gotta get out there with a ruler and figure out, okay, my grass can't be no more than 5 inches. It's hectic. It's crazy. This is very, very heart-wrenching, and me speaking of someone who has been, for legal reasons I can't really get into it, falsely accused and imprisoned for just, I'm white and I say so. I feel her pain. I really feel her pain. 7 days, and that rings with me because I was locked up for 7 days, and for them to be like, oh, all right, fine, my bad, so I hear what I feel her pain. The thing about this, I'm not excusing racism. I'm kind of trying to explain the racism. We all know that after World War II, you had a lot of vets that had the GI Bill, and this is when the cadets came home and they were just building new homes and everything, and everyone with their GI Bill, they were able to get new homes, they were able to get new jobs. I forgot the name of this video, or maybe Black Steel may help me with it. It was a black and white video that was given out around that time, and it was basically talking about black people moving into white neighborhoods. So they had this stigma of saying that was propagated, saying if a black person lives next to you, your property value goes down, right? And so in this black and white video, it was basically saying all the racist stereotypes of what it means when a black person lives next to you and the value of your home. And it's a mixed bag. They had white people that were saying, I don't care, as long as they, keep their place up, keep their place clean and stuff like that. I don't care if the person is black. Then you had some people like, hey, look, I don't mind a nigger living next to me, but I don't want my property value going down. And you had the other one saying, nah, I don't want niggas around me. You know what I'm saying? But this black and white video dispels the notion of black people bringing your property value down. So we all know that while the truth is putting on his shoes, the lie has already traveled around the world like 3-4 times. So with that, you probably have these people with this same particular mindset. And we have to understand it's the HOA. I don't know how their HOA works, but the one in Florida and the one in Georgia is usually a committee of people in that subdivision that lives in that subdivision. So a lot of people don't like living in subdivision because they have to adhere to the HOA. Then if you piss somebody off that's 4 doors down or whatever, and they know something from the HOA, they could put just really take the screws with you as far as like, well, you put your garbage can, the garbage people came and they took it on Friday, and Saturday morning I saw it. You're supposed to it's a whole lot. But again, it is you did say something interesting, Coco. Where is the black subdivision? I would love to see that. There is no such thing, from what I know, a black subdivision. All the subdivisions that my mother lived in is always a mixed group. So Port St. Lucie, Granite County in Georgia, it's a mixed bag. It's never really a whole bunch of white people. We never want to live around a whole bunch of white people. I say this all the time. I'm not saying all white people are racist. You know what I'm saying? That would be ridiculous to say that, right? But to me, it's a matter of numbers. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be moving soon. And when I'm moving, I have no problem living in an all black neighborhood, but it has to be an upscale black neighborhood. I lived in upscale, middle class black neighborhoods. I got nothing wrong with that. But it's to find those neighborhoods, right? What I'm saying, once you live in a predominantly white area, it's only a matter of time till you're going to get a lot of racist people. You can have a white friend that's cool. He could be an ally. He could be this. He could be that. The moment you start getting a couple of his friends or his family members, based on the numbers, someone's going to be racist. That's just how it is. I've seen this played out all the time. But I'll just pretty much end it here. I mean, she should move. I feel she should move and find a neighborhood that's a little bit more friendly to her needs. That's not the only neighborhood. I know she paid a lot for the house or whatever. So, but I think she should move and find a more friendly subdivision. She's in Tampa. Tampa's not a small place. Tampa's a big place. I also have a little family in Tampa. So I think she should do that. But I really feel her pain. And yeah, I think, people always say, well, why is it up to you? Why you always look at celebrities and have celebrities, do these endeavors that black people need? Why? Because when white people get rich, white people make sure other white people get rich. They make sure that their people are fine. Like a week ago, we're already talking about there's a community where is whites only whites only. Nobody else can come. Whites only, and you can't say nothing, right? Because we got Juneteenth and we got all these black holidays. What's happening? What's wrong with the white man now? Right? The white man can't have nothing to himself, right? So I'm saying that to say you have Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, you have all these rich black American entrepreneurs. I don't understand the selfishness of it. If you could open up a subdivision, it's lucrative. It's a business. You'll make money off of that, right? You'll make money off of that. We black people need a safe space in this country. And I don't know, I'm not person to say, money's the root of all evil. Maybe when I get a certain amount of money, maybe that virus would affect me. But me as an everyday average person, like, understand you want to make money. You don't want to throw your money away. And, but you can make money off of building a legit, there's acres of land in this country. And if Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry and all these people worth all these hundreds of millions of billions of dollars, they could do that. But I don't know. All right, I'll end it right there. Thanks.
I want to.
Can I say something? Wait a minute.
I know Bakari's going to come at me.
I ain't gonna come at you, guy. I'm not coming at nobody because I know everybody I don't want to live in no subdivision, whether it's black or not. I don't want to live in no gated community. I don't want to be like Europeans. That's European stuff. Gated communities keep the peasants out and the rich people in. And then you end up like a billionaire row in Palm Beach down there with Epstein with Trump's time. Let's go over here and get some of the peasants that's homeless, and then they can come work for us. We can look down on them. I don't. Other people want to live in those areas. I don't want to live in no subdivision. But I wanted to touch on something you said, Kobe, when you said the HOA committees in Georgia is people that live in the subdivision. I thought that for a long time too. And it's also touching on something Black Steel said. The people you see in the subdivision that say they're HOA committee, they report to the real HOA committee. The damn mayor of the town that I live in was over 26 HOAs. Her, one dude on the city council, and a lawyer. They were over 26 HOAs. And then you know what? And they had somebody in real estate with them too. The people you see in there, they're just there. They don't make no rules. People who don't live there make the rules. People you will never see. For the most part, you'll never know. For the most part, make the rules. The only reason I know the mayor was over, and I ain't finna talk about this, but I told y'all once before, when they offered me a certain amount of money to be quiet, that when they start telling me, that's when she started telling me what she was over and what they were over and what they control. The people you see ain't over nothing. Like when Black Steel said, and that lawyer was the lawyer for his HOA. Yeah, man, they be running and they want to get rid of the black people. And one more thing, I'm gonna say this: stop letting people tell you your value. When they say my property value, they are not valuing on damn land and on house. If the land and house wasn't worth nothing, they wouldn't want it. They're putting value on you. So I ain't saying nobody said it, but I always ask people, let's stop repeating white people words. This is gonna make our property value go down. No, 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 no. I don't want that car in my front yard. See, look where they put the trash can in there. Stop repeating them, because they're telling us we have no value. We have to stop repeating everything them folks say and everything they do. Now,
Sorry, I was only saying that as a lesson, as a lie.
I didn't say nobody said that. I was just saying
Oh,
when you mentioned it, I'm
all right,
saying that's what I always tell people. That's what when you mention property value, that's just how I see it. They're not valuing the land, the house. They are putting value on our black ass. But that's all I wanted to say. I yield the mic.
Go ahead, boy. I know you're going to say something.
Oh yeah, I wanted to throw a little mix into this because I've lived in 3 different kinds of communities. I've lived in a wealthy black community where my folks are. I live in the community I live in right now, which is a round-the-way community. And then, I've spent time in poor communities. And there's a different culture that exists throughout all those communities. I think the brother was talking about, Arthur Reserve was talking about class. People do different things in different communities, even though they are predominantly black. And what I have found is in wealthier black communities, you don't hear nothing goes on. Everybody's extremely quiet, and for some people that's good. They don't mind that. For me, I like living around the way because on the weekends you get to hear the reggae music blasting in some places. You get to smell some people cooking different kinds of foods. You have a little bit more mix of culture. You can meet people from different places and spaces. You hear Haitian dialogues going on. You hear cute Spanish dialogues, depending on where your grocery stores are. On the holidays, you hear the drum beating. You know that because we have Junkanoo. That's our culture. So people preparing, so they beating on them goat skin drums. So you can hear that from a distance. You hear that music in the air. And if you live in certain communities. Now, if you live in poor communities, I feel like the rules are very different. And these are unsaid rules. There's more of a police presence there. The danger aspect goes up. The danger aspect goes up. For a lot of people, that's the difference. The danger aspect. You have brothers, them hanging out in corners. Sometimes you don't know. You have different kinds of issues going on in poor communities. So there is distinctive differences based off of where you are. For some people don't mind it. Or for others, I understand where I understand what Brother Bakari is saying. What Brother Bakari is saying is like, man, listen, I don't mind living in a, I don't, because these people are trying to create a culture. But I understand what Kofi is saying because there's a danger aspect when it comes to, and it's going to seem bad, when it comes to unregulated Negroes. When it comes to unregulated Negroes,
Yeah, that's
there's a
pretty bad.
danger.
That's pretty bad one.
There's a danger. I know. Forgive me, man. But I live in that environment. I know how Negroes are. They'll play reggae music, blast at 3 o'clock in the morning, and don't care. Yeah, so that's why you need. For me, I need a little bit more regulation. You can have your music playing at a certain hour. You're gonna implement rules where at 11 o'clock, during a weekday, you can't be blasting reggae music. And then you can't be smoking, hanging on the street corner, smoking weed out in the open, like don't caring and stuff like that. So I understand the idea of regulation. Even within our communities, I believe you need to have rules. You can't be willy nilly because brothers them are gonna. I believe that the abuses are gonna happen. So I believe sometimes in regulation for some brothers. This is how it is, man. But that's just my belief on it. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it.
Real quick before Black Steel goes, Afro-Native World in chat asks a question. Where does the Rastafari community live in the Bahamas? Are they rural based? I'll let you answer that one since he addressed it to you.
Okay. Different areas. Some live in this area called Carmichael Road, way out, like how Arthur Reserve said, in rural areas. They live. Sometimes they live among the immigrants, like Haitian nationals and stuff like that, because it's a whole lot of. It's very unregulated in certain areas. It depends on where you go. So you have people in Carmichael Road. You have some people in not Nassau Village. It's called Gambia. You have a lot of places in Gambia. You have Rasta villages in South Beach. It just depends on where you are collectively, Rastafarian community. And it depends on the Rastafarian community too. You have Nyabingi. You have 12 tribes, just like Jamaica. You have different Rastafarian orthodoxies. So it just depends on the Rastafarian denomination that you're talking about. But they live all around in different areas of the Bahamas. So you would just have to come and see and try to get in where you fit in terms of who you'd want to link up with if you was to come here and want to link up with the Rastafarian community. But that's what I've found here. So.
Yeah, we call them Rasta camps when I was growing up. There was one in my area up on Andrews Avenue. That was pretty cool. Afro-Native World says thanks. With that said, let's let Black Seal have the last word on this. Black Seal will say.
So I understand what you're saying, Juan, about the need for regulation, right? I grew up in a neighborhood that people just did what they wanted to. So, they didn't cut their grass. I had somebody who was a hoarder. They had piles of trash and old cars that couldn't work, and they attracted rats and things like that. So I understand the need for regulation. But my issue with this situation is that this is not regulation, right? Because the rules are not equally enforced. This woman was harassed, she was hounded, and so I think sometimes we have the idea that just because poor neighborhoods tend to attract more crime. Unfortunately, when you live in a poor neighborhood, you got to deal with people dealing drugs, playing their music 3-4 o'clock in the morning, fighting, things like that. I understand the desire to move to a better area for your family, for your loved ones. That's a common sentiment I hear people say. Black neighborhoods tend to be poor, and she wanted to get her children someplace where they wouldn't have to worry about being harassed and whatnot. But I think that the issue lies with the selective enforcement of the HOA, the harsh measures they took in place. Of course, I think we can all agree on that. And how the HOA is basically used as a way to enforce the housing covenants that existed. So I would say I hope she could move, sell her house, because right now the housing market is pretty hot. The only thing is that most new developments you're going to find are going to have an HOA. Maybe she can't get a new home. Maybe she gets something kind of old on the older side, but it's been inspected and whatnot. But this is a horrible situation, and she's not the first or the only person who's gone through this. And it just shows how racism just continuously reinvents itself over time. In 1 minute you have housing covenants, you have sundown towns, and then you can't do that anymore. But then they'll change it up. So whenever Black people start keeping up, they'll change the music on us to reinforce the same racist laws and things like that to keep Black people in our so-called place.
Well said. Well said there, Black Steel. You know what? Let's move on to Shooter Breeze topic number 2. And let's wish this sister the best of outcomes going forward in the future. Shooter Breeze topic number 2 says, how one individual helped expand slavery. This came with a link that's going to take us to X. And this is a post from Great House, or X Spots the Mark, on Twitter. He said, Thomas Jefferson was responsible for the largest expansion of slavery in history. After the collapse of the Virginia tobacco industry, Virginia slaveholders turned to slave trading as their primary source of revenue. But Virginia slave prices were being undercut by Carolina rice farmers with slave imports from Africa's rice coast, Sierra Leone. Jefferson pushed for a ban on the importation of slaves from Africa, not out of altruism, but to protect the burgeoning slave trading industry in his home state of Virginia. Jefferson himself was a Virginia slaveholder. After the ban of the importation of slaves from Africa went into effect in 1807, Virginia became the primary supplier of slaves for the Carolina rice farms and the Deep South cotton fields. This led to an explosion of slave breeding in Virginia. Throughout the course of slavery, Virginia would go on to breed and sell more slaves than any single African slave empire in the transatlantic slave trade era. For some perspective, the infamous West African kingdom of Dahomey, at its peak in the mid-19th century, sold an estimated 10,000 slaves a year to Europeans. The city of Richmond, Virginia, exceeding that total in a single month, selling 10,000 slaves a month to the Deep South. Jefferson once boasted, quote, I consider a woman who brings a child every 2 years as more profitable than the best man of the farm. What she produces is an addition to capital, while his labors disappear in mere consumption. Jefferson also acquired the Louisiana territories from France and oversaw the westward expansion of slavery. According to Jefferson, neglecting to expand slavery would be, quote, an act of suicide on themselves and of treason against the hopes of the world. Let's watch this video. It's a 9-minute video. Let's watch it and then we'll discuss it all.
Every farm with slaves was a slave breeding farm. Let's just start there. Because every child born to a slave owner enhanced the slave owner's wealth. And a slave owner was absolutely free to sell any of the enslaved people that he legally owned anytime he wanted. So there was, whether it was Jefferson or any other slave owner, there was always a pressure on, this is where we come up with the term, the capitalized womb. There was always a pressure to coerce enslaved women to reproduce as early as they could and as late as they could, as often as they could. The pressure was unsubtle.
You guys, this book is north of 700 pages.
Yeah.
You did extensive research. You've been lauded by historians and academicians for, the incredible research that you did. When you said that women would be coerced, enforced, and absolutely forced into submission for whatever the slave owner wanted. In that exhaustive research that you all do, what were the early ages that you found that the slave owners started to have the girl child starting to procreate?
As early as their bodies could do it.
Just as soon. And there is evidence that slave owners paid fair amount of attention to see when a girl child would be able to start bearing children. And in certain documents that we have read, it got so coercive that if she herself was not interested in partnering up with another another African American on the plantation or the farm or the cotton field, wherever it might be, they would just point and say, "This one, you go with him." It wasn't like you were actually being married. It was like, but the point is to get her pregnant as soon as possible, because, as we say, the capitalized womb, the moment that child came into the world, the credit that the owner of that child had increased automatically at least $50. And $50 was not a small amount of money for your average American at that time.
And so I'll stay still here with Charlottesville and Jefferson, who many revere as a damn near a deity. So Jefferson sort of obviously became president, you know, a highly respected figure. But Jefferson is someone that was quite okay with the laws being established that said the slave owner, if in the midst of him correcting the slave, should he kill him, which would have been murder, should he kill him, there was no legal consequence.
Well, that was the law, generally speaking. I mean, from the foundations of the colony, from the foundation, certainly, well, South Carolina, very much so. Yeah, Jefferson, I mean, more than any other single figure, Jefferson was responsible for the creation of the slave breeding industry in the United States for actions he took as president.
Ned,
yeah,
I'm gonna stop you there and have you to repeat that, because we have viewers who are looking in here, who absolutely go down and pay honor and homage to that, again, edifice down on the banks of the Potomac River, and who revere him as a deity. So please repeat that.
More than any other single person, Thomas Jefferson was responsible for the creation of the slave breeding industry in the United States.
And can you share with us how he went about doing that?
Very simply. I don't know how many people know this. There's a lot of real basic stuff that people don't know. A lot of people don't know that the slave trade from Africa was prohibited by federal law as of January 1st, 1808.
Yes.
What a lot of people don't know is that that date's in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 9, not as the date at which the slave trade must stop, but as the date before which it cannot be prohibited. It's the only date in the Constitution, which otherwise is much more abstract. It was put in there at the insistence of the South Carolina delegates to the Constitutional Convention, who wanted a 20-year guarantee that the African slave trade could continue. There was a confrontation of power at the Constitutional Convention between slave breeding Virginia and slave importing South Carolina. Virginia held the political cards and it won. South Carolina's response was to become kind of a renegade state, which ultimately led the path to secession and civil war. Jefferson's role in this, well, in particular, Jefferson very proactively, as president in 1806, asked Congress to prohibit the slave trade at the earliest possible constitutional date. He already in 1806, he's asking to have this January 1st, 1808 cut off so that not one more African would be brought than after that date.
Yeah.
And Jefferson really tried to spin it as a humane gesture, but
and got credit.
Ending slavery would have been humane,
Right.
but slavery didn't end. What that was protectionism.
Yeah.
Jefferson was responding to not only his own financial predicament, but to that of his constituents in Virginia. He was making it impossible to bring in the cheaper foreign imports, so that if you want to speak of it in industrial terms, the human product raised in Virginia and Maryland became much, much more valuable, making his colleagues in Virginia much wealthier.
I would just like to add something to this, which is, I think, very important. Throughout the whole history of slavery in the United States, and I'm speaking of the United States as opposed to the colonies before independence.
Right.
Throughout that whole history, the people who were born and bred in Virginia and Maryland gained the most premium prices on the market for all kinds of reasons. And Jefferson was already aware of the fact that their population of enslaved labor had all of those traits and characteristics that other buyers in other parts of the region that were opening up for agriculture in various forms would be looking for. And throughout the whole history, up through the Civil War and abolition, Maryland and Virginia were the center of that. These were the most valuable property that you could buy and sell.
Now, can you give us an example as to why that was? You said the certain traits. Why was that? Why were the slaves from Maryland and Virginia deemed to be more valuable?
All right, that's from the Rock Newman show. Let me see if there was more of a thread here. Greathouse goes on to say, anyway, read The American Slave Coast, A History of the Slave Breeding Industry by Constance Sublette and Ned Sublette. And that's the cover of the American Slave Coast book. He goes on to say, quote, this unfortunate race whom we had been taking so much pain to save and civilize, have by their unexpected desertion and ferocious barbarities justified extermination and now await our decision on their fate. That's a quote from Thomas Jefferson calling for the genocide of American natives. We got some white folks pushing back as per usual when it comes to a Greathouse
Every
post.
farm with slaves.
With that said, man, let's have the discussion. I see that the chat has been kind of posting a bunch, so I'll get to the chat in a second. But with it said, let me start with Kofi on this one. Kofi, how one individual helped expand slavery? That should be topic number 2. What say you to what you just heard?
I have to be emotionally in a particular space to hear things like this because it really, 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 really gets me upset. And I'm just trying not. I'm trying not to let it really permeate my brain right now because every time, especially when I'm studying anything about African history or anything like that, and I know there's going to be a chapter where it's going to be like genocide or rape or things like that, I have to be in a particular mental readiness for it because it's just totally despicable. And this is really nothing new. for me, or for me, learning. I did learn. I did learn about the price that the lady just said about the high price of slaves from Maryland and Virginia. That I didn't know, but that is also not surprising because people fail to realize that Black people are a commodity, and at the Emancipation Proclamation, we became a liability. I really don't have nothing really much to say. That I'm pretty sure that this is a very smart audience that we have right here. So I don't want to really just repeat something that we already know. I'm gonna try to move the comments. I'm gonna give a different take on that. We need to keep this in the front of our minds all the time when we're dealing with any aspect of life in America and abroad, and the nature of these quote unquote people. Right? This is what they will call a civil society, aka Make America Great Again. If you read Sheikh Anta Diop's Civilization or Barbarism, it pretty much plays into how the white psyche works, right? If you also read the Iceman prophecies, also, right? Oh, I forgot that guy's name. It was John Henry Clark was promoting that book too. You read that book too, and many other books I could Michael Bradley. You read that. Also, Kicked Out of Heaven. I got 3 volumes of that. That is even crazy. Once you understand these people, they think, well, okay, yeah, fine. Slavery was bad, but we're still a civilized society because we don't practice slavery anymore. No. You just having running water and a place to live and have a king and infrastructure does not make you fucking civilized. It doesn't. It's your behavior. It's your behavior that makes you civilized. So when they see people from South America, the indigenous people from South America, to the people in Africa, and they say, "Oh, look, this is not a civilized society. Look, these black girls have on no clothing," and like. That's you looking through the lens through Europeans. Your behavior is what makes you civilized. I could live in a quote unquote mud hut with a stream with 5 people and be more civilized than someone that has a society that was built by Bill Gates, by Bill Gates or Elon Musk, and there will still be a barbaric. I'm saying this to say that we have to realize. Keep this in the front of our minds when we're dealing with these type of people, of how these people are, and we need to be upset. And this is the reason why I like this podcast, is because every time a black person does something that's quote unquote violent, that's white people reacting on some like shit. Did niggas find their senses yet? That's what that always is. Did they find their senses yet that they should be cutting our fucking heads off? Having using black children as alligator bait on breeding farms, or what the professor said right there. All plantations were breeding farms, but they especially had breeding farms. They want to know one day maybe black people are going to wake up and start massacring us all. They don't want another Stoner Rebellion. They don't want another Nat Turner. I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to talk about the desecration and humiliation of our children. I can't.
Appreciate that, Kofi. Let me just say this real quick. And there's no ID on this. I'm just speaking out loud. One of the things I think black folks tend to do is they
Did you go out, Koku, or is it just me? Yes, it's just me.
No, I don't hear him either. I don't hear him
No,
either.
he did go out. He'll be back.
Oh, we
He'll be
lost
back.
Coco. Oh no.
Yeah, he'll be back. I'm sure he'll be back.
Let me know, please.
Oh, yeah,
we hear you,
he's
man. We hear you now.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? Let Buana go. Let me try and fix this situation. All right.
Okay, so this August is a big Pan-African month. This is a big Pan-African month, and my brother Bakari says support black business, and I say as well support black business and support black scholarship. So in this prompt, this has a white male talking about our history collectively, selling his book. But to counteract that, there are many black scholars who has addressed these kinds of issues. And I would only ask the brothers and sisters who listening to me to support their efforts in telling our stories globally. So if you want to limit the slave experience to America, there have been many African American scholars who talked about the slavery narrative from a different perspective. For instance, there's a person right now on YouTube. Just check him out. His name is William Mackey. William Mackey. He talks about slavery in America and the details of slavery in America from a perspective of his ancestors. And he speaks about it in a way in a classroom setting, just like how the Dr. Henry Clark used to talk about. Everyone has their different specificities, but he's one of the scholars in terms of talking about the slavery narrative. I suggest anyone under the sound of my voice just visiting his YouTube, go to YouTube, put in his name, Professor William Mackey, and you will be able to have all this information at your fingertips. Another scholar who wrote extensively on this issue in terms of how the president saw slavery in terms of just specifically capitalism, because Black Steel is going to beat me up about this later and saying, "Moana, didn't I tell you capitalism and slavery go hand in hand?" Well, I'm knowing that there is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. His name is Eric Williams. He wrote a famous book on capitalism and slavery called, the book name is Capitalism and Slavery, and his name is Eric Williams. Anyone who hasn't read that book yet, have a read of that book, because it shows in detail how the slave or the labor of the slave was just specifically seen as capital itself. They wasn't seen as human beings. They just was specifically capital, specifically capital. So he goes into the detail to the extent of how not only businesses, corporations, and plantations use the labor of the black person or black person in the Western Hemisphere, just dealing with capitalism alone. Then also, let me add to the mix. There's also my
Quantum,
sister.
real quick. That book you're talking about is from Eric Williams. He wrote the book from Columbus to Castro, or Castro to Columbus.
No.
Yeah, he did. Eric Williams wrote that book also.
Eric Williams wrote that?
Yeah, Columbus.
Yeah. He wrote that book. Yeah, I got that book.
No sweat. That,
It tells you
let me
about
add.
slavery in the Caribbean. It's very interesting.
Yes. Let me add to the mix. My good sister, who is also a scholar as well, and she no slouch. Matron is currently reading a book right now talking about the slave coast. So if you are interested in these kinds of ideas and details of these things, she reads these things for free, for all to hear. And she annotates these things, and she goes specifically giving her own ideas to what has specifically been happening, breaking it down for any common person who would want to know. She reads these things. She's currently reading something called The Slave Coast. So have a listen to her channel, and because she'll give you some clarity as to what went on. Last person I would like to mention, there's a brother called Dr. Gerald Horne. Dr. Gerald Horne wrote a book called The Counter-Revolution of 1776. He goes into the details of the connection, really the bridge between the Caribbean and the plantations in South Carolina and Virginia, and how slaves was brought from Barbados and Jamaica and other Caribbean islands to fill the plantations of South Carolina and Virginia.
We don't want to hear that tether talk. We don't want to hear that.
Well, we don't want to have that tether information.
I'm playing.
But if you are interested, you don't want to read. There are various things on Dr. Gerald Horne. Have a listen of how he explains these things in detail. These are people who are experts in their industry. So I say that since this is August and since we are supporting Black business, instead of buying this white couples books, I don't know who they are. Go to your brothers and support them. Buy their books, contribute to their channels, and do what you need to do to really inform yourself on these topics rather than just listening to these folks, give an explanation on your history. But I'll leave it there for anyone else who wants to go.
Just as an aside, by the way, I'm back. I had a electrical outage for a second there. Just as an aside, Rock Newman, the gentleman on the right of your screen, somehow and for some reason, I'm not sure his story, but he's considered black, by the way. He's supposedly a black man who has a pro-black agenda, by the way. So do with that what you will.
He's a mulatto.
Afro-Native World in the chat says Rock Newman is African American, descendant of the light-skinned mixed black families of Southern Maryland. So do with that what you will. So it's not just a panel of white folks.
Rock Newman ain't selling the book. The people next to him selling the book. I know Rock Newman is a black man, but the people next to him ain't a black people.
No. I'm saying that just for those who might not know. You know what I mean? Afro-Native World says octoroons and quadroons. And Trigger says, I've seen his younger pics. He looks black there, but when he is bald, he looks white. Okay. So that tells you what you're doing. I'm just putting that. I'm just saying that to for those who might not know. Because when I first saw him doing his show on the internet talking, I was like, who's this white guy? And then I vaguely remembered he was a corner guy in boxing back in the day. So, just for those who don't know, who spoke? It was Kofi, then Buana went, right? And now Black Seal, you've heard what everyone else had to say. What say you to it?
So, a lot of this history, I knew. There were some parts I didn't know. So, but I think, when especially those of us who live in the United States don't know to the depths of what these crackers are capable of, because this history is not well known. So, like, for example, he mentioned the importation of the slave trade, right, was supposed to take place, or they could not make any laws until January 1st of 1808, right? This was seen as a compromise between the southern states and the northern states. Those northern states that had already abolished slavery, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, so on and so forth. These states that wanted to abolish slavery versus the southern states that wanted to keep it. So this date was seen as a compromise. This is what they call in the Constitution the Great Compromise, right? The compromise between the southern states, well, part of the Great Compromise, which gave certain representation and so on and so forth, but also that helped include that Black slaves would be counted as 3/5 of a person for the purposes of the census, right? So it just goes to show you how fundamental the ownership of African people was to the United States. Its wealth, its building infrastructure, so on and so forth. To me, this is something you never hear. not to bring up the devil, but I never hear these ADOS and these FBA people mentioning this. When they talk about that Black people built this nation, yeah, they built it under duress, right? They built it as property. We were never meant to be included as citizens or even considered to be human beings. So it's just to me, whenever we bring up these topics, it's good to go into this history, because a lot of it's not known. Now you have people who purposely remove this history, so that way we don't know exactly what our ancestors went through. So you hear these people say, "Oh, Black American," we're saying that, why is it that we have so many African Americans here and we're not really African Americans? We was really Native Americans. but they want to ignore the role of of breeding farms, which helped produce black people when they couldn't trade them from Africa. And even then, the trade from Africa never ceased. So they still were smuggling black people from Africa. The last slave ship to arrive in America landed in 1860, right before the Civil War. So the idea that there was a hard cutoff, no, and it wasn't enforced. So they were still sneaking in slaves and bringing them to plantations under cover of darkness, with no problem. So the idea that we don't know this history, there's something to be proud of. You know, every year the descendants of Thomas Jefferson, they have a family reunion at Monticello, right? So this happens all the time, but at the same time, um, his black descent, because if those of us who don't know, Thomas Jefferson had children from his slave, his property. He called the black woman by the name of Sally Hemings. Sally Hemings was actually Jefferson's wife's sister. So when he married his wife, she brought her sister with her, which was supposed to be her, her little maid or whatnot. When his wife died, he started messing with Sally Hemings, who was his wife's sister. She was also 14 years old. So Thomas Jefferson had several children from Sally Hemings. And every year, the descendants of the black Jeffersons go to Monticello for the family reunion. So it's a crazy thing when you think about it, that even after all this time, you have black people still want to identify with and be in close union with their enslavers. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, by the way, Rock Newman was the corner guy for Riddick Bowe, who some will say is the greatest boxer, heavyweight boxer that ever lived. But that said, Brother Bakari, you heard everything everyone else had to say. What say you to all of it?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I ain't hear everything. I had to fall off. I'm out with my grandkids. I came back. Y'all was talking about Rock Newman, so I wanted to say yes. I know Rock Newman through Riddick Bowe, but he's not black. He's not mulatto. He's not octoroon or quadroon, whatever kind of room someone said. He was a poor white boy who mom and dad told my. The only reason I know this, I saw the documentary. Who mom and dad said they moved to a black neighborhood because they knew the only friends he would ever have would be black people, because no white people would accept him because he's so poor, and because they were so poor. And he said he was born there. He showed the house that they lived in, and he just grew to love, and he embraced black culture. He said those were the only friends that he's ever had. And he did a DNA test to say he wanted to know if he had African in him. And I think he's like 15% African, but he's a white guy that was born and raised around black people. And but in all honesty, I've done things for black people, though. In all honesty, he wasn't just talking. That's where he one of the ones who made some money. And we were just talking about what Tyler Perry them don't do, and he ain't make their type of money. But if you look and see, he the one of the ones that made some money and went back to the neighborhood where he was from and helped black folks. In all honesty, now I'm gonna touch on a little bit. I heard Black Steel just say when he was talking about how ADOS and the FBA, he called him the devil. Won't talk about how we built this country with a whip on our back, a dog on our ankles, and a gun at our head. It's not like we moved here and said we're gonna build this. We're gonna build this nation, and it surprises me too. It amazes me too. Not surprised, but it amazes me how many black people want to be associated with slave owners. Just listen to all the black people that claim to be Native American. Have you ever noticed whenever they claim to be Native American, they always claim to be part of the 5 civilized tribes? Well, I got a video that I'm going to play on when I do my next one. And it was a guy from Oklahoma, black guy. He was on the Roland Martin show, and his family was part of the Muskogee Creek Nation. But he just told the truth because they were finally accepted into the nation now. And even when they wrote up, they even wrote up about how they had to finally accept their African slaves into their nation. But these people, because it's not these indigenous to this land people, they're going to be upset. They don't like that. They're going to say it's a lie. We want to be, even though they want to say everybody in the world was black, which I don't believe that either. There's no way to prove that everybody in the world was black. It sounds good to say, and they were black and they turned to something else. I just don't. Me personally, I don't necessarily believe that. You haven't had enough proof for me. But they are trying to relate to anything other than being African. I even heard some of them say, I heard a couple of people say one time, they would be, remember the one they found here, supposed to be 9,000 years old, the black one, she was Australoid, whatever they called it. I can't remember the name. I can't remember what they named it when they found it in a piece together. And it came over, supposed to be. They would say they're that. I heard some say they're Polynesian. They want to be anything but African. Anything but African, as Oni would call them. ABA, they're anything but African. And there's nothing you can do with those people. So when we talk about unity and come together, like my opinion, the people that want to come together is gonna be together. I'm not trying to get none of those people. I'm not trying to convince none of those people of anything. It's a waste of time. We can waste our time and say we're going to try to get all black people, or are we going to actually finally do some damn work and work with the ones that we have and who want to be a part of us? Let these other people run around and be who they are, and whatever it is they are, let them be that. Because like I say, it's a waste of time trying to convince them. It's an absolute waste of time. Let these people be just like the blaggers. I said, just let them be. They love Trump, let them be. All the ones who say they're okay with what's going on, just let them be, because you can't convince them. And since you can't convince them, when are we going to realize that it's a waste of time and there's things that we can do, things that we know that need to be done? Like when me and Koku texting back and forth, we're texting so we can be able to communicate, not just on YouTube, in case something happens, so we can communicate from hundreds of miles away. Things that we know need to be done, that's what we need to do. And just leave these other people on, unless we just enjoy talking on YouTube. And my next live is about, is it a true stereotype, or do we just, is it only a stereotype, or is it a stereotype, or is it true? Do we just talk? That's mine. On that, I'll hear the mic. And I'm probably going to listen offline because I'm finna go in here and get my grandkids and they're going to be loud.
Yeah, I hope you're having a good time with them grandkids as well, by the way.
Oh,
Thank
I
you for
am.
that,
Look,
Brother
man, y'all
Bakari.
go to my... Hey, I am. Thank you. Go to my channel and look at the video I put up today. It's Black August, Black Business. I always do it anyway. But go check out the one I put up today, I guess a couple of hours ago. TKT played. I can't remember the name of it, but you'll see it. Black on, like a trampoline park, big bouncy house with everything. But that's what I do anyway. But since it's August, I made sure I had to go do one today.
Appreciate that, Brother Bakari. Yeah, by the way, there was supposed to be a whole boycott of African businesses on August 1st, but it seems like that was thwarted by, got to give them credit, a lot of Black Americans spoke out about that over the past week or two, and seems like that was thwarted. I wanted to mention something real quick before I get my last thoughts from you guys. Things that Brother Bakari would have mentioned that we talk about when we text and speak to each other on the phone. We talk about things like this post I put up this week. I'm not going to play the video because it's kind of an ad, but it's about living off the grid. It's about buying things like generators, and in particular what Bakari and I talk about, in addition to the ham radio stuff, which requires you to actually study and pass an exam to officially operate a ham radio. There's a series of walkie-talkies out now that is going, people can talk to each other from New York to Texas and all kind of stuff like that. That's something I think if we're serious about community, I think that's something that we should look into some more. I'll post some more information as I get it for you guys to check it out. But that's why I said that's why I said at the start of the show, we gotta be serious about what we're talking about, and we gotta put our efforts where our mouth is. We gotta put our monies even where our mouth is, or else it's like what Oni says, to quote Oni for a second time during the show. Else we're just Pan-Africanists. We're not Pan-Africanists. We just like talking about stuff. It's time to actually your stuff. For those of you who live in areas where it's possible to get your firearms, man. Stock up on some canned goods because you never know what's going to happen out here. You know what I mean? Get some training, etc. So that's something I'll talk more about when the Patreon drops in a few weeks. Is there any last thoughts on this prompt right here?
Yeah, yes, Coco. That lady who you put up there in terms of living off the grid, she came to the Bahamas. She loved the Bahamas. That Jamaican sister, she loved the Bahamas. She didn't live in Nassau proper. I think that she liked the family islands because it's more natural. She like to live close to nature, and she does have. Hello.
Exuma. I think it was Exuma.
Yeah. So she liked to live that off of the grid lifestyle, and that is an important issue. Brother Bakari, I have my bones with Brother Bakari. I going to go see Brother Bakari one of these days. By the way, I going to Atlanta to see him. But Brother Bakari is a well-trained military person, but he never get on that thing where he was teaching people specifically in terms of living off the grid, and that has always been my challenge to him. You need to teach the details of how to's and going about doing things. He built his own air conditioner in his working thing, in his working van or whatever. And I think that he would be very helpful in explaining some of the details, because Brother Bakari can't just tell the people to live off the grid. He must show them how to do the things in the details. The devil is always in the details, and the people for better understanding and learning how to know is you going through the details of how you're doing, because what may be self-evident to you because you are a well-trained military individual, it's not self-evident to everyone else. So I would just challenge you to explain the details of when you say living off the grid, what does that look like, and how do we go about doing those kinds of things? Just like the sister in the video. But I'll just leave it there because I will never want to hop on my big brother Bakari. He's a great man, and I'm gonna see him, but that's my challenge to him sometimes. But I'll leave it there. I'll leave it.
Appreciate that, Buana. Any other last thoughts on this current prompt right here? All right, let's go to Shoot the Breeze subject number 3 for tonight. Thank you, everyone who's participated in these conversations, from the chat to the panel. Much appreciated. I think the conversation has been a great one tonight, and I hope that we can continue it until about 11 or so p.m. tonight. Should be subject number 3 says, is Umar on that stuff? This comes with a tweet from Antoine Daniels. He's problematic too, but anyway. He says, Umar asks as follows for money after saying he's broke without money because of fraud. Let's watch the video. It's about a 3-minute video. Let's watch it.
I believe Medea and Pastor Bussy were fraudulently trying to get into my account. And if we find out that's the case, they will be sued and possibly arrested, because fraudulent activity on a bank account is a federal offense. Fraudulent activity on a bank account is federal offense. Fraudulent activity on a bank account is a federal offense. Again, June 25th to July 10th is the period of suspicious activity. That is from the time Medea went public and I left for South Africa. Between the time Medea went public and I went for South Africa. So brothers and sisters, if you want to make a donation to FDMG, you must send it to PayPal. Hold off on the checks and money orders until the situation is resolved. Hold off on all FDMG Academy money order and check donations until the situation is resolved. If you want to make a donation to FDMG, send it through PayPal, right? PayPal.me/FDMG Academy, PayPal.me/FDMG Academy, PayPal.me/FDMG Academy. If you want to make a donation to the school, hold off on checks and money orders until we find out what the hell is going on. The bank is investigating the fraudulent attempts on our account. If I find out Medea and Pastor Bussy had anything to do with this, I was told that they can be arrested for federal offense. I was told they can be arrested for federal offense. I was told they could be for federal offense. Now, with that being said, brothers and sisters, Dr. Umar has access to no money right now because my personal account contains all of my money. I only send it to Apple Pay and PayPal as necessary. So the Prince of Pan-Africanism, for the first time in my life, is without any digital currency. So for my loyal supporters out there, if you can spare a few dollars so I can take care of Queen Mother Ifa Tunde and myself until my bank account is frozen or canceled so I can get my money back and open up a new account, please hit my Apple Pay or hit my PayPal.
This is diabolical. Honest to God. This is it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate we have gotten to the point to where we are panhandling on the internet and asking people to hit the Apple Pay or whatever it is that he's saying hit up because he's saying that his accounts are frozen.
Yeah. Let me see if there was any comments under this video. So someone repeats fraudulent activity in a bank account as a federal offense 3 times. Like Umar likes to repeat things in threes. Someone says, I'm just here to tell you that school is never coming. Etc. So I'll leave it there. But Umar is saying that he's broke. I'll start with Black Steel on this one while the chat builds up some commentary. Black Steel, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at Dr. Umar. We have to be honest, man. Dr. Umar has been scamming Black people for a long time. He really has. He's been trying to build this school since 2010, 2011. And the problem, let me just keep it a buck, right? True leadership comes from the people, right? I was always suspicious of Umar when he started calling himself the Prince of Pan-African, King of King Kong consciousness, right? It always struck me as odd because no one should be calling himself the leader of anything, right? That's not a title you bestow upon yourself. That's something that's given to you from the people, right? So it was this need for him to be seen as the leader. He was going to do everything by himself. He was going to open a school by himself. One thing I noticed with all of our great revolutionaries, our great leaders, they always work within the confines of an organization, right? Marcus Garvey had the UNIA. Dr. King had the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Malcolm X was with Nation of Islam. But they always had an organization that everything wasn't on them, right? But Umar made it a point to where he was the sole person in charge of this, and he was going to lead the way. I seen one time he was on Instagram, and he had a picture of himself as Moses holding the 10 Commandments, right? Like he was going to lead the Black people to the promised land, him alone. So it just struck me as, okay, something's wrong with this dude, because his need to be in front of the camera, his self-aggrandizing, his me, I'm the one who's going to lead the people. And then over the years, oh, he's collecting donations, but ain't no motherfucking school being built. Where's the school, cuzzo? Where's the school? So it really felt like, excuse me, it really felt as though he's not a serious person, right? So when he between him repeating himself all the time, and then he was out here spreading false information. He won the Breakfast Club, and he said so many things that were just completely wrong that it was an embarrassment. He said that in South Africa, Chinese is a national language, but Zulu isn't. Xhosa isn't, which is obviously not true. He said Buddha was black, and the Buddha means the black one, which is completely false. But here he was purporting himself to be some sort of black savior. And as time has gone on, we start to see there is no school. You know, the emperor has no clothes, right? There's no. It's what bothers me, not just about the fact that Umar's grifting, but the fact that he has been empowered to do so in our community for so long, right? We have to do a better job as a people of dealing with those who take advantage of us. When Umar started out, he wrote, I read his book. It was a good book too. When he started talking about how black children are treated in public schools, he was absolutely 110% right. It was an excellent book. If he had built on that foundation, he would be, he would be, that we wouldn't be talking about like this. But this constant need to, I'm doing this, I need money, and there's nothing to show for it. He showed us an old building in Delaware that had a sign on it, but to this day there's no students. He doesn't have a student, there's no student body, no teachers, there's no faculties. You want to run a whole residential academy on just donations? That's not possible. That's not possible. So I really feel like, you know, Umar is a cautionary tale. We got to be careful about who we deal with, who we interact with, and who we give our money to. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Quickly in the chat, War Drum says Umar has been the worst thing that could happen to Pan-Africanism. Our sister Marcus Gavi is the way, says good night to you as well. War Drum says Umar stepped in front of elders. Tragavi 262 Plus says Umar's issue is probably more along the lines of individualism and ego, but then again, he says he has a team around him. Apparently, Cheryl Easy says Umar has a lot going on. War Drum says that Baba James Small should be paramount chief. I'm not sure about James Small, bro. I want to be honest with you. I'll talk more about it in a second. I really like this comment here. Afro Native World says Umar is more of a comedian, and you know what? I don't mind that. Afro Native World. I could talk about it more later. I don't mind that, to be honest with you. I don't mind that being conscious comedy that's centered around Pan-African, like Pan-Africanism. Once it's not clowning Africans and all that old stuff, but I don't mind that. But to present yourself like Black Steel would have said, that you're someone to be followed and all this type of stuff is just like, come on, man. It's time we put this guy away, to be honest. Shout out to Anthony McPhail. He said James Small is double-minded. Yeah, that's exactly why I don't know about him in particular. But shout out to Anthony McPhail. I hope all is well with you. With that said, man, let me hear from Buana next. Buana, what say you?
Yeah, sir. So, Coco, I personally believe that Dr. Johnson has mental health issues. That And the reason why I say this is, the basis of me saying this is because of his daughter. Sometimes mental health issues are hereditary. I think that Malcolm X is the best example of that in terms of what happened to his mother. And many people question the mental stability sometimes of even Malcolm X. But I know generationally his daughters had some mental health issues. I think that Dr. Johnson has mental health issues. And what I would say to the sisters, because Dr. Johnson is the best example of dating advice, I would say. Because I would tell the sisters who are interested in dating men, Black men are great talkers. They used to say about Bahamian men have sugar on their tongue. We could sell you a story, or we could sell you a beautiful storyline, a picture that would make you want to just do anything. But what I have learned is, sisters, don't follow what men say sometimes. Primarily look at what men do. Primarily. Because we sing the sweetest songs in terms of selling storylines, but watch what the man do, especially when no one is supposed to be looking, because the devil is always in the details. And the details, I don't like to judge human beings or judge men or whatever, because God forbid somebody judge me. But just look at the details of what this man is currently doing. Instead of finding work, legitimate work, he wants to go to be a panhandler on the internet. Go wash some cars. What are you talking about? Go work I remember I was in college, I used to work till they pay today. I don't know if people even know what that is. Go find a little job, bro. Go do something where you could learn, could get a wage at the end of the day, instead of asking the people are confused whether they consider you to be a serious person or a person who just panhandling for dollars. They're confused. They would respect you more if you pack in groceries instead of begging them for $1 and $2 and $3 a contribution at the end of the day. If you was a serious person and you ain't trying to con them. Because now it seems that the government or these corporate places trying to stifle you from doing what you need to do now, because they looking at you side eye. It's been more than 10 years. Nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. And you have these little projects where you're showing the people, I paint this, and not everyone is fooled by that. So they watch the details of what you are doing. And I think the sisters sometimes, when they dating, gauge men by that particular point of view as well. Men wouldn't necessarily with a man say, watch what he doing. Watch the details of what he does. And then gauge him based off of that. He'll tell you who he is by what he does, not necessarily what he is saying to you every day. And unfortunately, like I said, I believe this particular brother has mental health issues. Unfortunately, that's a sad scenario. But to resort to these kinds of things under the name of Gavi would a lot of mercy. Could you imagine Gavi go into his supporters and saying, well, listen, they freeze my bank account, I need to have some money? No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Figure it out. But this is not the way. This is Pan-African panhandling. And you bring disrepute to what your messaging is. I would rather you pack groceries than resort to what you're doing right now. I would rather you do that. I would respect you more. But I don't know. I would just leave it there. And that would be my advice to the sisters in terms of dating. Watch what the men do, not necessarily what they're talking about. And this is a prime example of that. And we've been through the Polites, we've been through the Malachi Yorks, we've been through the Yahweh Ben Yahwehs of the world. And this guy is just carrying on tradition, I guess. He is carrying on tradition. But we don't want that kind of tradition in our community. The grifting must stop. It must stop. It must stop. And to replace that, the serious people have to come into the room. And we can't only engage ourselves with this idea of entertainment, because Dr. Umar Johnson is extremely entertaining. He's extremely entertaining. but that don't build nations. Entertainment don't build nations. You know, but needless to say, the most boring person in the world is Elon Musk. If you ever had Elon Musk talk, he is the most boring person in the world to listen to. But he getting the details right. He ain't trying to be entertaining. And let me stop around there. I'll leave it there, Coco. I'll leave it, Coco.
Good stuff, Juan. I appreciate that. Quickly, let me hit the chat. Musings and Bloom. I don't think I've ever seen you here before, but forgive me if you have been. They say Umar is no better than the various grifters and plants on YouTube, posturing as leftists, etc. What I'd like to know is how much did Umar raise? Umar is a clown, but we've got worse wolves amongst us. I agree we have worse wolves, but Umar is a bad look for Pan-Africanism, as someone else in the chat had said. Umar raised about $750,000. Tariq is a bigger and I guess quote unquote a better grifter, but Umar, he raised that money was over 10 years now. Yeah, my kids were small when Umar talked about building that school, and there is a building like someone I think Trigger Happy mentioned. Yeah, Trigger Happy mentions it here. I see a school physically, but the timeline of it just seems to be the issue. I'm also wondering how the curriculum would look like. Yeah, Umar has kind of overdone this thing now. War Drum says Umar speaks about himself in third person. Trying to go through musings, and Bloom says, for all we know, he could have. What does ONS mean again? He could have ONS raised 10K. I'm no fan of Umar, but let's be measured with our critique. Umar is an entertaining, plain and simple. He appeals to a certain segment amongst us. But that's why, musings and Bloom, this is why we got to be strict. This is why we have to tighten up our communities. We got to be strict. There's no time to be playing with Pan-Africanism in your mouth all the time, and you out here, damn near being a shyster, if not being one, right? War Drum is who said it. Umar has single-handedly stained Pan-Africanism. There's a lot of talk about the one-drop rule and the colorism stuff still going on in the chat. So I got to try find my way through it. Marcus Garvey is the way he says, I give him the benefit of the doubt. Propaganda is the greatest tool used against us. She says, have I ever supported? Yes, years ago. Andy McPhail, like I said earlier, he said James Small is double-minded. Marcus Garvey is the way he says, we still bank at Bank of America, known slave owners. Okay. Yeah, so, by the way, got a super chat. Appreciate you, KW Don 7. KW Don 7 says, Umar blocked me on Instagram for mentioning that it has been 6 years since taking possession of those buildings and no certificate of occupancy. Good stuff. Lot of comments, and I appreciate when we have a lot of comments in the chat. That helps us have better conversations up here on the panel, I do believe. With that said, let me hear from my brother Kofi. Kofi, what say you?
As a famous Bahamian actress said, damn, damn, damn. That's the rope. I always had high hopes for Dr. Umar. It's like a bad train accident that had good people on it, and it's like, oh God, no. And I look away hoping it will get better, but it always resurfaces itself as something not good. And I'm not gonna repeat what everyone pretty much said, but it's pretty much, yeah, he's a very bad look for Pan-Africanism. So all the anti-black people that Brother Bakari was talking about, and that we talk about, that I'm not African, I'm not this, I'm not that. So they all should put you in the Pan-African box, which is just fine. But they keep thinking they have a cultive like mindset. So if Tariq Nasheed and Yvette Carnell is my leader and hero, that means by default Umar is yours. Like Koku said, he keeps saying that, you know, keeps having Pan-African in his mouth. So it's like automatically people associate people with him, but you know, all people aren't a monolith. There's nothing really else to say, but this is just a sad. This is just sad. It's like the I don't know. It's kind of like it's like people that have the most influence have the worst intentions. And I get he started off good, he started off great. Everyone met Umar Johnson. I met Umar Johnson. Same thing when he wanted to start the school. My wife was a teacher, and he said, "Hey, can I teach at her see if she has any positions in her school or whatever? Because for me to be a principal and to have this school, you know, I need certain certifications and da 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 da, and I need this many work hours, yada yada yada. Let me know, let me know, let me know." So, you know, so he seemed very genuine. But like Juana says, the Yahweh ben Yahwehs, the polites, the this and the that, you know, they fall by the wayside. But look, this is what I get out of this. You're not gonna agree with everybody. Like you talk about the Nuwapians, the Nuwapians helped me, brought me into consciousness, right? But I have to, you know what I'm saying, take the meat and spit the bones out. That's what I have to do. And I think with people like Umar, we have to take the meat and spit the bones out. So, you know, when you know he's speaking truth and that you could obviously verify, then, you know, you take that and you use that. You don't have to take everything he's saying face value, especially this. It's like, this is the first time I ever say I'm going to say this, but I think Umar is grifting. I never said those words ever, but I think it's just there's no receipts. Where is the receipts for everything for the all the trouble and the issues that you're having to build this school? If he was giving people a play-by-play, hey family, here's my documents, here's this that, blah blah blah, I'm short of my goal, or you know what, this happened. Like he's just saying it. Okay, show us something from your bank saying that you reported fraud. Just show us something. He can't. It's just rhetoric, and that's what a grifter does. He's doing the whole preacher thing, saying things 3 times. It's like a subliminal psyop that he's doing to, like, you know, embed it in your mind. Like, oh, he needs this, he needs that, he needs this. Oh my gosh, he's been being victimized, and it's just a bad look. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, to be clear, and I really do appreciate what you said there, Kofi, because to be clear, like Black Steel said, when Umar came out with his book and stuff years ago, I was a big fan of Umar because I thought he was the kind of voice we needed. That guy, that person who has an analysis of history and can articulate it. Not only that, but can connect it to what's going on. And I think there's still something with Umar on that level that's still a good thing. The problem with Umar is, and I see folks trying to give him a pass for it, but the problem is you've launched this school at least maybe 12, if not 15 years ago. You launched the fundraising for it, and back then you had $700 and something thousand, which you at that time back then you said the accounts were frozen and you couldn't access it. And then somehow, somewhere after that, you did have access to it. And yes, we see a building, but if you guys aren't tuned into him, he's not a part of this network, but he shows up here sometimes. Naps TV. Naps TV just recently did a video. And by the way, Wardrum, you could tune into Naps TV on Apocalypse TV on YouTube. Because it'll tackle 2 things that we're talking about. You're talking about Umar being broke and the school situation. And Naps went to the school a couple of years back, I think around the time of the pandemic or something like that. And nothing has been done since that time. Right? These are the problems. The other thing that Naps has on there, he has the receipts for Dr. James Small flip-flopping. One day, James Small is heavy on the FBA stuff. And then he goes on, what's up, brother's name again? He doesn't live stream much anymore. What's that young brother? It's a Haitian brother. What's his name again? Nation State of Mind.
Okay.
No, Nation State of Mind. I can't think of what his proper name is. But Nation State of Mind, James Small goes up on there and condemns Tariq and the whole FBA thing. And then, like, it must be a couple of days later, Tariq has James Small on his platform where James Small basically backtracks everything he said on Nation State of Mind. So that's my issue with James Small. Omawale Africa. Omawale Africa. Thanks. I knew someone was going to remember. Omawale Africa.
Yeah,
So
Omawale, he's American. Omawale is American.
I thought he was of Haitian descent, but okay.
Nah, Omawale is American.
Okay. Yeah, Afro-Native World does say he's not Haitian. I thought I could have swore. Okay, my bad. At least the misinformation didn't get out there. Go ahead, Bonner.
See, Koku, the thing is, right? See, Umar is extremely charismatic, okay? And he's a very likable person. But the reality is that don't let your emotions and the fact that he's entertaining cause you to suspend your ability to reason and logic. I have seen these people before, and my mother and them was big advocates of the televangelists back in the day, Kenneth Copeland and all these other people, you know. And because they was charismatic, they was able to extort. Now you use the word extort. Now use the word very carefully. Extorting the monies from people who are gullible because they used to sell my mother them a dream. All the TD Jakes them, Creflo Dollar. I mean, the scam is in the name. His name is Dollar. His name is actually Dollar. But I'm saying that don't allow your charisma and the fact that you like him, his likability, to cause you to suspend your ability to reason. It has been more than 12 years. And it's been 12 years of promises after promises after promises and low delivery. And the reality is people have built schools out of from their apartment buildings and naturally grew these things from one level to another level to another level. If this man had a sincere interest in educating young black boys, he could educate them under a baobab tree. That's like how they do it in the Caribbean or other places in Africa. You don't always have to start with this mega something. If your sincere interest is in informing and educating children, why does it have to be this grandiose thing? You could start off small and expand from there. I mean, I don't understand that, but you have to suspend logic and reason to get to where he is. And I would implore the sisters and brothers who still support him emotionally on an emotional level to use your reason and what he is actually doing. It's been 12 years. Imagine, if you will, because I saw something from Marcus Garvey is the way. Marcus Garvey is the way said, at least he tried. But imagine if you was to have a suitor or a husband or someone who said that he wanted to be with you. You had children with the man. The babies need to eat. And he is going out every day. And you're not going to say, well, at least he tried to find work for, support my... The babies need to be fed. They need real substance. And after 12 years, he can't say he's still trying. No. Get it together. And we are at the point now where we Pan-African panhandling for dollars. Oh, because the new excuse is, they freeze my funds. Nigga, and I'm going to use this word intentionally. Nigga, go get a job. Go flip some burgers. Go flip some burgers. Go wash a car.
But Bonner, he's a doctor. It's to be easy for him to get a job. That's the thing. That's a very good point you're making. He's a doctor. He's a clinical psychologist.
Kofi, I didn't even watch that whole certificate business, on a man level, but I go find some work. I don't give a shit what the certificate and the paperwork say. If you want to feed your family, you can feed your family regardless of the certification. Someone acknowledge you and say, you can come into our business now where you can pay me $100,000 to $200,000 a year. That's all well and good, but my babies need to eat right now. So let me get it out of the mud if I got to. If you're serious. So even if I have to wash the car, I could be a PhD doctor washing the goddamn car. Many immigrants come from many various places who are professional people, find themselves driving Uber, doctors, lawyers in their respective countries, but they need to support and provide for their families. So certain things have to take a back seat. and he ain't panhandling. So what make them? What make you better than them? What make you better than them? Go drive an Uber. What are you talking about? But like I said, maybe it's me being an immigrant coconut from the Caribbean, and I look
No,
at things differently.
no, you're right. Because that's my parents' work ethic too. My parents were police. My mother came here cleaning for white people. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
okay,
Sometimes you
okay,
gotta take 5 steps forward to get 20 steps ahead.
okay. Because for me, this seemed like panhandling. I don't like that. I don't like it at all, Kofi. I don't like it at all. But I'll leave it. I'll leave it, Koku. I'll leave it.
Yeah. Was Kofi finish his part?
No, I was just agreeing with Juan because he's absolutely right. He was building on a point. I'm saying if you're a doctor, at least have some integrity and get a job. You know what I'm saying? I get that. And us as immigrants and seeing what my parents had to go through and all the little stages they had to go through to get to where they are right now. Yeah, it's a matter of integrity. I'm not going to sit here and beg. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's an immigrant mindset. I don't know. My mother and father knew, like, look, I could do better than this. But you know what? For now, this is what I'm going to do. I have 2 children I have to feed. I have a rent that I have to pay. And they did what they can so they could do better. And that's what Umar needs to do as well. I agree with Juan.
Appreciate that, Kofi. Now, the sister here has been waiting for a little minute to speak. But let's give her, a warm welcome to Sister Ama or Shirley from the chat. Ama, how are you doing this week?
Yeah, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm doing well. How's everyone?
Thanks for coming through.
Thanks for coming through. Good to hear you.
Yeah, so y'all know that I grew up in Philly. Like I've been there my whole life. My family has been there their whole lives. You know, I even, it's funny. So I was listening to Umar before he started doing the whole school thing, and at this point, it's pretty. I agree with Kofi. Like it pretty much is a crash out. But I just want people to take a step back into let's go 15 years ago, right? Because before he even proposed doing the school thing, Umar was saying a lot of things that Black people generally do not like, they don't agree with. People were not supporting him like that. And this was maybe like we're talking like 2013, 2012. Like people wasn't really rocking with him like that because he was saying stuff like, oh, Black women should be wearing their natural hair. Black people should only be procreating with each other, right? All of these things. Even today, you see people don't really rock with that, especially people that are in their sick, like, from civil rights era, African Americans, immigrants from that time period that just come into the country. They ain't trying to hear that. Let's be honest. But my thing with Umar is his inconsistency, right? Even before he got to the school, he was saying things like, um, yes, Black people should be dating each other, but if you're biracial, then you're Black. And people wouldn't be like arguing with him. They would just ask him, well, if they have a white parent, then how are they only Black? And he would just say, well, Blackness is a feeling. Now here comes the inconsistency, right? Because how can you can't, Black isn't a feeling. No other race of people or group of people talk about, oh, Indian is a feeling, Chinese is a feeling. It doesn't matter how you look, la 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 da 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 da. It matters a whole. I understand where he's trying to go, but to there, we know what Africans look like. We're not gonna even play this game. All right. What he should have said, and what I would have respected more, is if he said there should be a vetting process for people who have a white parent. Because when you have a white parent, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person or anything like that. It just means that they have divided allegiances, right? And so you need to tackle that a certain way. There needs to be a vetting process for them. Or otherwise, you just get what you get in the Dominican Republic, right? Where everybody know. Well, if you don't know that history, I'm not going to sit here and explain it. Just go look it up on how the mulattoes were used against the African population. But it's Umar's inconsistency that got it for me. And fast forward to today, there's a lot of inconsistencies. I went out when we lived in Houston, we saw him at a conference, and there was a black guy sitting there with a snow bunny, and he didn't say anything. Normally he would say something, and I'm just like, ugh, certain things kind of turn me a little bit. And so I'm just like, for him to be that inconsistent. And then a friend of mine, really quick, she just brought up, well, I think he has a light skinned attraction. Like he's only attracted to light skinned women. And you would see him going on YouTube talking about, oh, well, I'm taking applications for uh um uh for queens, whatever, to be my wife, and he wanted like multiple wives, which I'm not opposed to. That's not the problem. The problem is I need a dark skinned one, and I need a light skinned one. I need a dark, like, even if that's playing for his audience, that's very confusing. And so for me, and I also think Umar gets caught up in social media too much. He gets caught up in people's comments. I'm sure he goes back and he reads the comments. It stress him out. He does all this crazy stuff. Um, like he at this point, it's definitely, I agree with Kofi. It's a crash out. He could just be trying to get money. Is he on the level of TD Jakes? Probably not. Probably not. He's not. People don't rock with him like that. Ain't nobody giving him that much money. Um, so I think, I'm just going to close with this. I think he's taking the road that Cynthia G took. And remember, I don't know if you guys listen to Cynthia G. The stuff she's putting on social media right now is ridiculous. It's crazy. It's anti-black male propaganda. But remember how she's being paid by YouTube. She's making six figures, right? Talking the things that
I know I'm cutting you. Can you please tell us what's the crazy thing she said? Because my son doesn't hardly know anything about her, and she said something that was insane. So can you please tell
yes,
us? I want to know if it's what it tops
yes,
what I know.
yes. She pretty much all the white talking points that white people have about black men. Black men being not being providers. White men provide better. Black men are the scum of the earth. I've heard her say. All like. Man, it's such a list. It's such a laundry list of just awful things she used to say. But the reason I get to her and how I'm going to connect it back to Umar is the fact that when she first got on YouTube, she had an excellent analysis of black relationships, and she tackled the biracial issue so well, and how the statistics on black men marrying white women and black women marrying white men, and why it's a problem, and the problem with just white people in general. She was, if you go way way back, she has such a good analysis. And I'm not sure, something happened. Somebody, probably some white Jewish, I'm sorry, can't say that word right. Some YT people probably threw some money at her, and to say, hey, go and talk this crap about your own people. And she probably found herself in a vulnerable position, and she said, well, shit, I'm sorry for cursing, but okay, why not? I'm going to make all this money. And I think something similar might be happening to
Cheryl,
Umar.
Cheryl, really
Sorry,
quick.
but go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
so with
Sorry.
Cynthia G, she her baby daddy was no good, so he
Was
kind of
that it?
dogged her out.
Oh,
Yeah, she
that's
got
what
with
it
her
is?
brother, yeah, who dogged her out, and all of a sudden she went from Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader. She fully embraced the dark side. So
But you know what? That's a good point, because I didn't know all of that. But that's a good point, because Umar is having it's not the same situation that Cynthia G had, but he's having a similar issue relationship wise with his baby mamas. So to me, it feels like it starts there, and then the crash out comes thereafter, and then after that, here comes the money from YouTube, right? That's how it seems to follow a pattern, if you get what I'm saying. So i
absolutely.
think i think he's kind of getting there, and it's sad to see the crash out. It really is sad to see the crash out. To be honest, with the school thing, I've never given money to the school, but not because I didn't believe in him. I just thought he was inconsistent. So I'm not surprised by this. I don't think the school was ever going to make it, because he was talking about um having teachers, female teachers. One of the requirements was that you could not wear your natural hair. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's excellent. And he listed the reasons why for our children to see our teachers with natural hair and all of this stuff, and why it's important. But I didn't think the school was gonna make it. Maybe if he took that money and all of the people who gave the money agreed to set something up in the motherland, but I don't think our people are thinking like that. But if he would have did something like that, and everybody agreed, it would have worked. But it's honestly, it's just never going to work in the United States with those type of criteria. So, it's a crash out. It's sad to see. It's really painful, but it is what it is.
I want to mention the horrible thing that I heard. So that you said that my son said, he said black women need to find out if they're having a girl or an abortion.
That's awful. That's
Yeah,
awful. That is
she
awful.
went viral
She's
for that.
off the wall. She is
That's
off
what
the
got her
wall,
suspended
man.
off YouTube because, and here's the thing,
She's
what
making a
got her
lot of money.
she was making, her channel got taken down initially because
Yep.
a white woman reported her. A
Yep.
white chick
Yep.
heard that, reported her, and got her channel taken down. Now you
Yep.
say if she's back, I don't see how she can come back after, I don't know how she came back from that, but Dr. Umar too, he's been very disrespectful towards his children's mother.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the
Same
baby
pattern.
mom was giving him issues. He was actually sending his followers to harass this woman.
What I do?
So to me, it's like, how you gonna sit up here and talk about you want to work with black children, but brother, you can't even get right with your kids' mothers. Like, that is not something that should be open for public consumption. That should be something you should handle privately. And I don't remember when the daughter got on here to ask about her sister and how he responded to her. It's been a clusterfuck, and you got to do better, man.
Yeah, I think she came back because she got some type of deal. I feel like I remember someone doing a post about how much she was getting paid to, kind of up the ante, like talk even like get talk even worse about black men and black children. Like she got a certain amount of money and she agreed to some terms before she was able to get back on YouTube. She definitely did. But I think I see the pattern with Umar, and I think he's headed in that direction, unfortunately.
In the chat, KW7 said that Cynthia G does live streams from an unlisted, demonetized channel once a week. And I think someone earlier said she makes some money through Patreon nowadays. Let's welcome in the brother MG2, who's in the chat, person kid. MG2, how are you this week?
Always good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate listening to you guys, and thank you for the heads up on these other channels as well. Peace to everyone in the chat, of course. Black family, definitely.
Yes.
I've been now. I'm probably I'm much older than most of you guys, and I remember during internet or quote unquote pre-social media's nascent versions, for lack of a better term. In its nascent version, it was more, you had like what was called Live 365, you had Rainbow Soul, you had a lot of the things, because remember, streaming wasn't it was in its infancy. And so what had happened at the time is black folks came out of the 1990s, pro-nationalists. We had Dr. Amos Wilson, we had everyone from Jan Carew, we had Dr. Tony Martin, and we went from that into this form of individualistically trying to be scholars without a scholar's credentials or the scholar's record. Here's what I mean. When it came from the 1990s, I should even say from the 80s to the 90s, because we're going from Dr. Amos Wilson, Dr. John Henrik Clark, and a lot of our scholars. Once we got into the form of what they call internet, for lack of a better term, and things started streaming, you had Live 365, you had different streaming networks. what had happened is folks became their own scholars in their own minds. You had like the House of Consciousness, you had all these different pop-ups, Black, what was it called? Black City or Black Network, Black Planet. And what had happened then is individuals were spouting a lot of things that they, regurgitating things of the real scholars, but putting their own spin on it and claiming that they were the ones who initiated it. We saw that especially out of New York. We saw that out of Cincinnati, Philly, LA, Vegas. A lot of individuals decided, hey, I can go ahead and get the aspect of celebrity. Now, here's what I mean. One of the things that really plagues a lot of our folk, and this is where it comes in with Dr. Umar, who was born, theoretically born on the same day I was, Nat Turner's revolution. The thing is what had happened is we have this, our industry, for lack of a better term, is we want the industry of celebrity. Whereas other races, other non-African people, they want the industry of productivity. And when I say productivity, I'm talking everything from militarism, I'm talking technology, I'm talking finance, international trade, agriculture and health. We're talking energy, we're talking technology. Their claim to fame is, hey, I want to excel in that industry or in that particular, that's their niche. Our niche as Black folks has been celebrity. And other folks have capitalized on that celebrity. And the thing is, that's clearly, we run our lives for, unfortunately, our compass is what this celebrity or what this influencer or whatever somebody else is doing. And this is not new. This is something that stems back, generations upon generations. We're talking back in the 20s. And so we've carved out that niche. Unfortunately, it's not as productive as the things that other that non-Africans do that we're subjected to and we depend on, like food, water, technology, security, things like that. So what had happened is, and I'm gonna bring this down to Umar and the previous sister that talked. I loved her voice. Thank you so much, sister, for what you were saying, because it also encompasses the Cynthia G, the Paris Milans, and the whole niche, the Nylas, the BGSs, the Willie Pete's, all of that. Here's what I mean. What had happened is others capitalized. They said, well, hey, if these folks are, if this is their niche, we're going to monetize it and we'll make more money having them, having for lack of a better term, having them butt heads and destroy each other while we get paid. And go back to the hip hop days. Go back to the Tupacs and Biggies. Others got paid and we end up in graves or in jail. So, and it's because of our quest for celebrity recognition, or in other words, we either want to be a celebrity, extol a celebrity, excoriate a celebrity, or want the attention of a celebrity. And that's literally why they put this social engineering thing called social media out there, to go ahead and make sure that we will never compete and never will be in control of our own destiny. So let's bring this up to modern day. I saw it start from the 90s to the 2000s, or actually from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, when all of a sudden you started having the very early nascent versions of social media. Now remember, when it first started out, a lot of Black folks were throwing up their fists going, Black this, Black that, Black power, this and that and the other. Then it went from there. You started seeing things kind of gravitate to where we were competing against each other. That's in the early stages of Blog Talk Radio, where it wasn't about Black. It was about, I'm more Black than you, or I'm more important, or whatever. Then that morphed, unfortunately, into gender. And then when it went to gender, it went to, after that, it went to xenophobic, this ADOS FBA nonsense. So the thing is this quest for celebrity is, how can we destroy each other in order to go ahead and get more views? I call it view whoring, because that's all we do. Not all us here, but that's what Black folks want, is whether it's Instagram, whether it's whatever, it's they'll go ahead and get on their knees and do whatever it is unsavory to get a view. And I don't want to get crude on this channel. So the thing is we see the progression of this. Now, when it comes to Umar Johnson, I remember when he first started. Remember, I'm much older than he and you guys. So I saw the progression of this view whoring. And it wasn't just him, it was what fostered that. Like I brought back the old days of House of Consciousness, stuff like that. This is what fostered. That's where you got your natural Tahooties and your Polites and your Setis and your Umars and things like that. And what had happened is, because of this quest of celebrity, the individuals that said, we're going to give you social media, we're going to socially engineer these folks to their own destruction while we get paid. So what do? They say, okay, let's go ahead and pay them. Let's give them a couple of dollars here, a couple of dollars there, and then all of a sudden we'll give them more views and we'll give them more attention. Thus, other folks will want to be them or be around them. I.e., the unfortunate aspect of the Tariq Nasheeds and whatnot, who produce nothing and do nothing in life other than cause confusion and disruption. And the thing is we saw that when I brought it back to, I said it started out with black this, black that. Then it went to gender wars. Again, your Willie Pete's, your I mean, it was a whole kit and caboodle of those, Tommy Sotomayor, stuff like that. Now you have the unfortunate Cynthia G aspect, and I know this brother personally. The Cynthia G on the male version is called BGS Edmore, you know? And so the thing is, these are destructive forces that actually make us not only uncompetitive, but we're self-destructive, and we're doing the work of other races to destroy ourselves, so they can have a hands-off approach and say, no, why we're going ahead and creating technologies, why we're going ahead and securing ourselves, why we're going ahead and doing the things we need to do to compete, we'll just let them go ahead and destroy themselves, and we'll go ahead and pay for the privilege. We'll just give them little, a couple of advertising dollars. So now you've got Umar in the situation he is. Now I've always said, hey, that brother's got one mission. Either he wants to get into someone's pockets or some woman's pants. I mean, a preacher's no different. But the unfortunate aspect is we have never learned from what Dr. John Henrik Clarke and a lot of the scholars said back in the day. We're always looking for leadership, or, oh, I like this brother, I rock with this brother. I'm like, hey, I like what someone says, but if I don't see, and I'm gonna use the real word tangible, and not what these FBA idiots use. I'm talking something you can smell, touch, taste, see, hear. You could drop it on your foot and say, ouch, a product, good, or service. If I don't see that, then that individual could not even lead himself to the toilet, ergo Umar. So the thing is, unfortunately, when I'm seeing this stuff, Dr. John Henrik Clarke said back in the day, leadership is, and he was saying, and I'm gonna kind of remix his words, it's not about celebrity. It's about one closest to the enemy in pursuit, and not just the physical enemy, but it could be economic. Hey, the one who's pursuing something in order to make the economic environment better for his people, that's a leader. Someone who wants to make sure your security is good, that's a leader. Someone who feeds you, that's a leader. Well, unfortunately, we've gravitated toward leadership, i.e. in the form of celebrity, i.e. Umar Johnson, Cynthia G, and the Polites and everything else. The thing is, now we're at a paradoxical crossroads, because what they did is they said, well, now we're going to go ahead and sprout this virus called social engineering, and everybody could be their own leader in their own mind and their own right. All they got to do is get a bunch of Instagram views, and now they're an influencer. Well, you've got peddlers that peddle drugs that are influencers. Okay, influencers should influence things of productivity and competition. Well, individuals who make sure that we are in this position because of our own minds and our quest to not go ahead and compete, well, hey, you see the result. So this Umar situation is no different. We saw it with the kit and caboodle. I've seen this through the 70s all the way through here. The thing is, because of this paradoxical crossroads, is to make sure that you shift the wheat from the chaff. And I'm talking in your own, where your energy goes, where your time goes, where your productivity goes. If it goes toward this, the unfortunate status quo of celebrity, then clearly this conversation and conversations like that will be in another 20 years, like the ones that I heard 20 and 30 years ago. If you go in this crossroads and say, hey, from now on, I'm going to produce products, goods, and services, and I can care less about the Umars and anything else in this life. If you're not in that, then you're going to have some problems. So it's up to you, young folk, to which direction or which fork in the road you want to go ahead and approach. But anyways, thank you so much for this. I just wanted to kind of put this out there for you guys, because we're really at a tipping point for our people globally into what we're going to determine as our fate coming into the future. So peace to you guys, and Hotep.
Yeah, man. Peace to you too, MG2. And chat, Musings and Bloom commented that this speaker talking about UMG2 is brilliant, impeccable analysis. So we always appreciate when you come through. It's always a joy when you come through. Does anyone want to add any last thoughts to this prompt right here?
Just real quick, the MG2, I didn't know you said you personally know BGS. Remember, I've heard him online a couple times, and he's gotten weirder and weirder. Some of the things he says about Black women and how they have a low level of contempt and for Black men, and we were never meant to be together. And it's just, some of the stuff he says, I'm like, bro, what happened? So the fact that you say you kind of know him, like, this is crazy.
Yeah, unfortunately, MG2 dropped off just when you started to speak, but of course he's welcome to come back on anytime. Musings and Bloom in the chat said, and the worst part is clowns like Umar Johnson are pushed onto our social media feeds, even when you aren't looking for that content. That's a fact. Tariq Nasheed too is pushed on our social media feeds. You know what? Without further ado, since no one else had anything else to add, let me drop our last topic for the night. Shooter Brace topic number 4 says African naming systems as explained from a Yoruba perspective. This is going to take us to Instagram. And on Instagram, this is from Wa'a Sere. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. He says, what happens in our societies today when women have names is totally alien to us as African people. Not even Africa alone, even among the Arabians. It is strange. A woman marries a Mr. Adigan, and they instantly become Mr. and Mrs. Adigan. The woman becomes invisible just because she's married. This will irk many men, but as man, why should it matter so strongly to you that another human being entirely does not want to change their name to yours just because they're married to you? It's not a problem, actually, especially if she's willing, but at least know that this was never who we were. Colonialism, it was, which turned things upside down. So there's actually a video. Let's watch it, and then we'll discuss.
In a typical Yoruba setting, women don't change their names to that of their husbands upon marriage. And this is not a uniquely Yoruba thing. It is an African thing. In Africa, in the true unpolluted African setting, no woman was compelled to start bearing the name of her husband simply because she was married. In fact, in Yoruba land, even the idea of surname is alien to us. We never gave surnames. The practice of giving surnames and women adopting the names of their husbands upon marriage was started by early Yoruba Christians who considered being English more civilized than being Yoruba. They adopted that part of the English culture that made a woman drop a maiden name upon marriage and that turned the name of a father or an uncle to a family name. So today in Yoruba land, it is now so ridiculous that a person can be bearing Mrs. Taiwo without being a twin. The name Babari Misa, for example, is a name given to a posthumous child. But today we have a lot of Yoruba people who bear Babari Misa even while their fathers are still alive, because that Babari Misa name is not their own actual name, but a surname, a family name, which isn't a true Yoruba practice at all. We have been so westernized that we have lost touch with our own unique, ingenious, structured way of giving names. The coming in of these imported religions, you see, has so changed a lot of things about our society. It is now near impossible for a lot of us to have a clear picture of what a proper Yoruba setting was before the coming of the Abrahamic ways of life. Eshu has become Satan, and therefore we now have names like Eshu Kofo. Olua is now being used for God in our names. Oba, in a name like Obafemi, for instance, is now being interpreted as God loves me. Whereas in the beginning, none of all these were so. But now, back to the subject of giving surnames. In those days, no child, no Yoruba child is given the name of another person. Even if that person is your father or your grandfather, your name must be unique to you. Your name is about you, the qualities you possess, and the guiding of Akosejaye and the feelings of your parents determines the name given to you specifically. You are never to bear the name of somebody else. A child never bore the name of its father. A woman didn't bear the name of her husband. These are the categories of names we have in Yoruba land. We have Oruko, Oriki, and Orile. Oruko is further divided into two, which are Amotoruwa and Abiso. Amotoruwa is the name you brought by yourself from Orun by virtue of the kind of birth you had or the circumstances that surrounded your birth, while Abiso is a name given to you by your parents depending on how they feel about you or what they wish towards you. Now, not everybody will have an Amutoronwa because not everybody has a special birth, but you must always have an Abiso. Oriki, on the other hand, is an attributive name. Oriki is a pet name. Its intention is to make your Ori swell. It is intended to make you feel good spiritually. The nature of your character or some qualities that your parents have observed in you, even as a baby, determines the kind of Oriki that they will give to you. Names like Agbeke, Ashake, Ajadi, Ayinla, Alao, those are what we call Oriki. It was a norm in the days of yore. Every Yoruba gave Oriki, except the Ijebus. The Ijebus are always different. Now we have Orile. This is the kind of name that acted like a family name. Orile is in fact a family totem. You must have heard people call themselves names such as Ajadi Ogo, Ayinla Esho, Akombi Erin, Agbeke Okin, Alani Ekun. All those Esho, Ogbo, Okin, Ekun, Erin, those are what we call Orile. They don't stand on their own. They are always attached to the Oriki. And those Orile names, those totems, are always unique to particular families. No two different families bore the same Orile. So when a person has his own Amutoronwa, Abiso, Oriki, Orile, the person becomes distinct. The arrangement of those names is unique to you. It is just like fingerprints. No two person can bear those names the way you bear them. So under no circumstance was a woman expected to drop a family was married into another family. If she does that, then the Yoruba purpose of name giving has been defeated. One of the primary reasons we give meaning is so that you can have your own distinct identity, so that you can mention your name at any place, anywhere, and they will trace you to your family, to your lineage. Now, when you have changed your own family totem to that of another family, how will you mention your name in a place and they will trace you to your father? Your own name is supposed to reveal everything about you, your own identity, not about your father or your husband. By hearing your name alone, I should be able to know how you were born. For instance, did you come out with your legs first instead of your head? In which case your name would be Ige. Did you come out in a sack, your amniotic sac? In which case your name would be Oke. Did you come out with your umbilical cord twisted around your neck? In which case your name would be Ojo or Aino. And in the case of the Ijebu people, just Aino, because Ijebu ki nje Ojo. Like I said earlier on, the beautiful Yoruba naming system is such that I should be able to know your attributes simply by hearing your Oriki. Are you an undefeatable person like Adisa, or a strong-willed person like Ajadi, or a beautiful soul like Aduke? Your Oriki tells these things. By hearing your Orile, I should be able to tell the exact family you have come from. Ours is a very genius, balanced, unique way of giving names. I mean, that is way superior to the surname system we are practicing today. Nibika Somo Loruko, Yoruba Pe, Yoruba Gbon, Yoruba Sirewa, Washere. In a typical Yoruba setting, women don't change their names to that of their husbands.
Sorry about that. So this is interesting and a little bit confusing because I see Trigger Happy or Afro Native World say, Trigger Happy say this is the same with the Akan. And I was under the impression that, and maybe it's a different West African group with a different naming system. I could be wrong. I do make mistakes. But I thought that in the Akan tradition of naming, I thought it was customary to name a child after a day of the week, etc. And there's a male name and a female name to that. But also, I thought it was customary. In fact, I could have sworn I read a Camden paper on this podcast that talked about how it was important to name a child. Sometimes you named your child after your uncle, who was a great man in the village or what have you. So when he says that it's all original names, I was a little bit surprised, but I'm thinking that maybe that was just a Yoruba naming tradition. But Trigger is saying that that's also what this gentleman is speaking of is also a Khan. So I found that very interesting, man. If Trigger, if you can, you could clear that up for me in the chat. But I thought it was, because I'll tell you why I really do think that too. It's a Caribbean thing. My father and them, when you check my father and his siblings, they tend to be named after some aunt or uncle. Like like that, and that thing struck me when I read that out of the West Africa, and I thought particularly the Akan, that's what was done. You named your child after an ancestor, even a recent ancestor, like an uncle or something like that. And I remember thinking, well, that's the same thing we do. And going back to the names thing, the name of the week, the names of the days of the week thing, again, I think is Obale Campbell who pointed that out too. Like, you know, you'll go to the American South and you'll find people named Friday and stuff like that, you know, named after a day of the week, just like it was in Africa. So if you give me a little clarity on that, that'll be appreciated. With that said, let me start with Amma or Cheryl Easy. Cheryl, what are your thoughts on this naming system for the Yoruba?
Yeah, I mean, every region has, their specificities, but I think the main takeaway is that, the names have they have meaning. I'm not saying that, when people who are Caribbean and African American don't give their child's names, they don't have meaning, but I think when it's rooted in your own it's when it's rooted in your own language, it's different. And I think that's the struggle that we kind of have in in the diaspora, especially and I hate to bring this up, but especially in the Caribbean, in in the US. um we're so stuck, and it's not our fault, but we're stuck on English names. And I think it's all the more reason why it's important for us to, if you have the chance, change. You can change your name, or make sure your children have a name that reflects who they are. um you know uh it's a long process. I wouldn't say that's something that just, hey, get up and go change your name. Like, it's something that takes time and patience, and you got to really, it's puts a lot of thought put into it. And I don't think when we grow up in the West, that's not something we necessarily think about. I think it's something we would value if we were taught it, but we're kind of still stuck on English names. Well, I can give my child an English name and it means this. And I would say, well, you could also give them an African name and it would have more meaning because it's rooted in your culture, right? But that's kind of hard. That's where we kind of struggle to see the benefit of that. And so, just in closing, like, I named, well, my husband and I, we found out, he has Akan roots. We got some Yoruba, we got some Igbo. So what happened with our son is very unconventional. If you go to the continent, they'll probably be like, "Whoa, he has your son has an Igbo name, and he has Akan in there. He has Ewe." But the point is that it reflects Africa, it reflects the different places that both of us are from. So even if you get there, that's good. That's a good start. So, and I know all the legalities of changing a name, that can be very stressful. Trust me, I know. But my husband and I, we actually did it legally. But even if you can't do it legally, and even if it's just how you want people to refer to you, that's good too, because that's still a step in the right direction. So yeah, I'll end it there.
Appreciate that, Cheryl. Oh, but by the way, you just reminded me that when I said this occurs in the naming system I was referring to occurs in the Caribbean, I said I've seen it in my own family. You're right. You're absolutely right about one thing. Those folks have completely English names, but the African, or that particular West African convention of naming children after the aunts and uncles is still going on, even though, just like when I said someone in the American South might be named Friday. That's not the African name, but it's the convention of using a day of the week or whatever to do it. Trigger Happy 262 Plus in the chat say, yes, that's that's true that days of the week are an aspect, but it isn't the only aspect, is what has to be understood too. So I guess that's the understanding for me there as well. I'm going to find that episode. I know I read a paper from Obadeli Campbell about it. And just quickly, one of the points he was making about that Cheryl kind of touched on, we name our children these British names, for example, these English names, right? Not knowing that this damn name means like the devil's spawn or some shit, you know, like some wild shit that has nothing to do with us culturally and what have you. And we named them that. And what Campbell was saying in that paper at the end was kind of like, then you wonder why you have a disconnect between you and your child. You wonder where did they get this, you know, these attributes from? Because ultimately, and I've said this for years on here, there's a power in naming things. When you take on the name of a lot of black folks don't see it, but there's a power in naming stuff. Just by you calling something what a white guy would call it, when your African ancestors had a different name, that's important. That's very important. Hopefully one day we'll learn that truth as well. With that said, let me hear from Black Steel next. Black Steel would say,
you know what? In times like this, when we get this type of knowledge, it makes me sad because it makes me realize just how much was taken from us, and what our ancestors must have experienced.
I was thinking that too.
You know, how they were, you know, put into a living hell, dragged across the ocean. They lost their families, their loved ones, their wives, their children, and then you took from them their very name. And not only you took their name, but you took the way they named each other. So it's almost like a piece of their soul was ripped out. And it makes me really understand why some of them resorted to suicide. Because you just taking the very thing that makes them human, the thing that makes them unique, and you just taking it all from them. Now your name is Mary. Now your name is Sambo. Now you're such and such. And if you get caught speaking your native tongue, you're gonna be punished for it. If you try to name it, if you have children with somebody, your children were just another piece of property. You can't even name the children the way in the way of your culture. So when someone explains the naming practices and the importance of it, it's almost alien to me, and it's almost like it's alien, but it shouldn't be alien to me. It's you should know this, but you don't because of what was done to your people. So I guess it's a sense of sadness and frustration. It's like almost like, you know, say for example, as a child you were adopted, right? And you were raised with a different family. And then as you got older, you meet your real family. But you don't know these people. These people are strangers to you. They adopted you and you know, like it was a young girl, it was a black girl who was kidnapped as a baby. I think she was a few hours old. And she was kidnapped by a nurse at the hospital. And that lady raised her as her own daughter. She had no idea the lady who was raising her was not her mother, right? Finally, like she was 22, her real family found her. And then the person who kidnapped her was locked up in jail. In her mind, her kidnapper was her mother. She felt nothing for her birth mother, nothing for her birth father. But she should, because they were the people who raised her, who carried her, nurtured her, but yet that was stolen from her. And that's how I feel sometimes when I hear the culture and the practices of our people. We should know this. This should be second nature from us, and it was stolen from us. So it just kind of, you know, it just makes me feel sad in a way. I'm interested to learning more about it, but I feel like it's something I should know, and it was stolen from us. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you for that, Black Steel. I had the same thinking as well when the gentleman on screen was describing this, and I remember having this feeling, but feeling a little bit good at the same time that, well, we did retain some of it, but not in quite the way that you would want to retain in terms of it being truly African names and stuff like that. But it's sad to think how much we lost and how much was really taken from us by a particular group of people that instead of getting away from these people, we want to move around them for a quote unquote better life. That's the sad part for me, man. Just bringing it full circle. Shout out to Talawa Ododo. I haven't seen you in a while, my friend. He says, yes, there are African naming principles we run into in the diaspora. For example, the Maroons tend to have Akan type names like Kofi or, Coffee, as we would say in the Caribbean. Man, good stuff from all of you tonight. We heard from Cheryl. We heard from Black Steel. I guess Buana dipped. Let me hear from Kofi next, I guess, on this. Kofi would say.
Good stuff. I named myself Kofi. If you know anything about Guyanese history, one of the revolutionaries, his name was Kofi. But if I was to name myself in Ghanaian Akan tradition, my name would be Kwame, because I was born on a Saturday, not a Friday. But names are very important, and not to say this is an elephant in the room, but we basically name ourselves because of our environment, which is a Anglo-Saxon Christian environment. So with me, when I was a Christian, I used to be a diehard Christian, right? I found out my father had a middle name named Nathaniel, and kind of find out his father was named Nathaniel. So he was named after that. So I figure, like me, being a Black Christian and everything like that, and being a born again Christian, being proud of that and spreading the message of Jesus and all that other stuff, I'm going to carry on that tradition, because I never knew my grandfather. He died when my father was in his 20s. So I'm going to name my first son Nathaniel, and then my daughter, I gave her middle name is Janice, and my son's middle name and my daughter's middle name is Janice and Genesis, after the first book of the Bible. Had them christened and all that, right? Because I'm no African. I'm just Guyanese. I just kind of look like them, but I know stinking African booty scratcher. That's to be my mentality, right? To the point, I don't know if you know, or like you're like a native New Yorker, you've been living here in New York. You used to have this Broadway show called Sarafina. And commercial used to come on all the time. I think it was they said there's a movie on it. I really want to see it again. And I remember growing up as a kid, I used to make fun of that because they were African. I'm like, oh, these African Sarafina. I think Sarafina is based, I don't know if they were South African or West African. I'm not sure. But it used to be a Broadway show for that. So this is my mentality. So coming into conscious of who I am, in the middle of that, I changed my youngest daughter, her name, I gave her an African name, and my second eldest son, I wanted to give him an African name, but it was happening too quick, and I had to name him something. My youngest son, I gave him an African name. So my youngest son and my youngest daughter, they have African names, and that's what they are, right? And it's very meaningful to the point where my kids could do whatever they want. My oldest son, he's like, Dad, I don't like my name no more. I want to change my name to because I have nothing to do with that. I don't tell my kids to be Christian. I don't tell my kids to be anything. I say, whatever you want to be. This is my perspective of what it is. You want to go to church? You go to church. You want to go to the mosque? Go to the mosque. You want to go to the temple? Go to the temple. Do whatever you want. But me as your father, as a Black man, this is how you're going to be perceived in those spaces, good or bad. But so names are very, very important. Then during the early 2000s, they had like all these memes going around. That's one good thing about social media. They had this Englishman or this European man, like from the colonies or whatever, and he's smiling and he's pointing at you, and he says, "Ha ha ha! You still have my last name." And that was, white people was having fun with that. You know what I'm saying? So that up to this day, that was probably like 2004 or something like that. They had that meme going around, and
it goes to show you that we have to be honest with ourselves, and if we want to like really like deprogram ourselves, it has to start with your name. But a name is a name. You know what I'm saying? It really doesn't matter, but it really means a lot to, especially coming in if you have children and things of that nature, to because they're a reflection of who you are. Because we gotta remember, before the transatlantic slave trade, before the sub-Saharan slave trade or whatever, remember they had to devalue you. Everyone goes around in back in the days with your name, which is your last name, which represents your family, where you are from, right? And then your name. So it will be who you are, your people, your tribe, your land, or whatever, your family name, and then your name, because you're irrelevant. They need to know who you are and where you're from. So that's how people usually introduce themselves. If you look at read literature, look at old movies or anything like that, people refer to you to where you come from and who you are, then your name. We do it backwards now, whereas like it's your first name represents who you are, really, but it's your last name and it tells you where you're from. You know, so as African people, we need to really get ourselves even I have a European name. My European name is a very, very Germanic name that translates into German and English. It means conqueror, ruler, things of that nature. My friend, if you guys remember way back when we were on my co-host one time, he's Jamaican, and he has his name is just a straight German name. You know, and as Caribbean people and people of the diaspora, when we want to change our names and do things like that, our parents kind of feel a little like, oh, why would they feel a little bit insulted? But it has nothing to do with that. Like when I told my father I'm naming my son Namar or Menes. All right, that's the first king of Egypt, of the two kingdoms. And my father being old school, very old man, I was like, hey dad, I'm naming my son this name. He's like, oh boy, that's a nice name, boy, but why did you get that little boy a nice Christian name now? Get a buy a nice Christian name. And I'm like, oh, okay, dad. You know, because he's just a product of his environment, of how he was raised, and some of us are not going to change. It's up to us that know to move forward and take that legacy. And I'll end it here, going back a little bit with the other prompt where we had with the whole Thomas Jefferson and everything. The reason I'm very secure on masculinity, and me crying doesn't make me less of a man. But when I was reading Chancellor William, Chancellor Williams' book on Black Civilization, and I was reading what Queen Nzinga and all these other people had to go through and fight, I cried, and I was upset with myself that I was like in my mid-20s, 30s then, but to allow that and the pain. I'm like, all these things that our African ancestors did for us not to have these names, for us to maintain and retain our traditions, to retain our religion, to retain our identity. And here we are just taking the names of our oppressors willy-nilly, thinking, oh, it don't mean nothing. You know, and to me, I'm going to be that vengeful aspect of our ancestors. We at least owe that to them. And I'll end it there.
Appreciate that a bunch, Kofi. And the chat has a lot going on this discussion as well. So make sure if you're watching the playback, look at the chat and get some more information and deeper conversations. But someone mentioned Islam. That's one of the issues when Black folks insert themselves into these or remain into some of these Abrahamic type stuff. Is yes, you'll get the good Christian name, but we tend to forget that, you know, a lot of things that Black folks would have done in the world, created mathematics and certain sciences and this, that, and the other, they have an Arab name. When you hear just making up a name, Hassan ibn Azul or something, the first type of person you think about is an Arab. You would have no idea that this is a Negro, an African, a black African who did this, that, and the other. But they have an Islamicized, Arabized name, and that's why That's why it's important to name yourself and to name the things around you. There's a power in that stuff. When you hear Ibn whatever, you do not think of no black person. You think of an Arab. I bet everyone who's listening to me right now feels the same. And that's because we subscribe to, we continue to subscribe to these types of things. With that said, let me throw it to Brother Bakari. Brother Bakari, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, talking about the names and what I ask people, because I know for me, if you do something great, let's say you do something great and you'll be remembered, and people don't know you, they just read your name. Would they know you African? I know with me they wouldn't. I have an old white British name, first and middle name. We don't have a true last name because your last name represents who owned you. It was like a tag. It was you was for Jones, if that's your last name. You were for the Johnsons. You were for the Thomas. We didn't really truly have names. Naming is very, very important. So I go through the process and I call myself Bakari. So I'm going through the process of change my name.
Did we lose Brother Bakari? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Brother Bakari.
We're gonna have people with the Irish tag. You're gonna have people with the German tag. That's what I call the last name a tag, because it's really not a tag, it's someone else's last name. And we still wear them today. Part of the reason our folks didn't know no better, like Black still said, we have been stripped of everything. They took your name from you, they forced you to forget. And those of us, our ancestors, and those of our ancestors that didn't forget, then in come the fear. Even if you don't forget, you're afraid because you don't want to be beat. You don't want to see your children beat a soul. You understand what I'm saying? So now we are stuck being with these names being British, Irish, Scottish, Jewish, German. You can think of damn near any European nation. Like you see, some of our women used to have the Russian first name, Sylvia. We don't care what we go through. All of Europe, you'll see some of us with a name from that, and now it's to a point where I remember Bill Cosby's pound cake speech. And I know people say, well, Bill Cosby, he was right. It's just the way he said it. He wasn't right. Because one thing he said in that pound cake speech that people forget, going out here naming your children these African names, we ain't no African. And I remember what Kofi just said when he said something about the movie Serafina, filmed in Africa, about, I forget what it was about, some school in Africa, starring Whoopi Goldberg. Years later, the same woman that went over there and starred in the movie Serafina over in Africa, she said on TV, well, Africans know I ain't no African. They know I'm an American. When they meet me, they know I'm not an African. But that's why our mindset is. We can call it brainwashing. We can talk about everything that happened to us all these years ago. We can talk about the residual effects now. But you know what? It seemed that we only listen to white people because we've had black scholars that come out and can talk about all of this stuff and try to show us a different way. And we can completely ignore the things they say, and we'll hold on to these names and we'll hold our culture. So what did we do? You got a so-called, a fake revolutionary group. They didn't get no African names. They became Arabs. They told us we came from Asia, and damn near 95% of the people in the organization name is Muhammad. Muhammad. Y'all, and we all know. Do y'all know who Muhammad Ali was named after? Am I
You
still
mean his
here?
birth? You mean his birth name or his or
No,
Muhammad
no.
Ali?
Muhammad Ali. Do you know how he got the
Yeah, I
name
know
Muhammad
Muhammad
Ali?
Ali in Egypt. Yeah.
He was a Turkish guy. He went to Egypt and he destroyed Egypt, but he didn't know. And I remember Dr. John Henry Clark talking. He said Elijah Muhammad told him that was a great general that once controlled so much, and they were our people. Dude, this man, and he didn't know. I'm not knocking Muhammad Ali for not knowing. The person who taught him this knew, but didn't tell him the truth. So now you're named Muhammad Ali. You named after some white Turkish guy who utterly destroyed Egypt. Did to Egypt what Leopold did to the Congo. And we don't know. And these are the names that we are carrying around, and we will fight and we will defend our last name, our tag, or whatever we want to call it. So yes, naming is very, very, very important. We need to understand our name. Like my name ain't got no damn meaning. Mean somebody white. If you just read it and you don't meet me, that's what it means. Somebody white. Martin Luther King did great things. But if people stop showing Martin Luther King on TV, stop showing Martin Luther King on YouTube, just completely get rid of all Martin Luther King Jr. pictures, when you hear his name, would you know he's black? Would you know he's of African descent? Malcolm X, if we completely got rid of everything about him, would you know El Haj Malik El Shabazz? Would you know he's of African descent?
No.
Neither one of them we would know. The great Marcus Garvey, would we know he's of African descent if you don't see him? So naming is very important. And on that, I yield the mic.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'll tell you why. I really didn't remember that part of the pound cake speech, because I was the one who gave Colby some props on the pound cake speech, but I don't remember him saying we're not African and all that. So I got to go back and look that up. I appreciate that. I appreciate you bringing that point up. With that said, Buana, you heard everything everyone else had to say. What say
Yes,
you
sir.
to all of it?
So here's how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start from 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 the bottom up. So the gentleman in the video, initially he talked about the importance of naming. And I thought about that, and he said that why do the women have to get rid of their names when they get married? So in the Caribbean, what the professional women do in the Caribbean right now is they choose not to get rid of their familial names. What they do is hyphenate the names. So my sister right now, instead of carrying the name of one slave master, she's carrying the name of two slave masters. She's going by a title of Doctor, her familial name, and then she's carrying her husband's last name. And I thought that was hilarious. You get now you get two slave masters on your back instead of one. But the idea is still there. She didn't get rid of her familial tie. She just included the fact that she was married, and she included her husband's last name. But both of these are British last names, so you're still in the problem there. And for my Nigerian brethren, for my Nigerian brothers, I am finding it very difficult when you all brothers say and talk about it in terms of naming, and naming is important. When one of the presidents of Nigeria was named Jonathan Goodluck, or Goodluck Jonathan. First of all, Goodluck is an English name, and Jonathan I think it's a Jewish name, Jonathan. So the Yorubas voted for him to be president of Nigeria one time. So if name wasn't so important, why are they telling him to go change his name to? Needless to say, one of my good friends when I was in the United States, the Africans, the Nigerians change the name all the time. My favorite sister, Her name, she used to go by Barbara Bosa. Barbara. She changed her name. She anglicized her name because she was coming to the United States of America. I say, Barbara, what's your real African name? So I'm saying keep it consistent because it's confusing me. Is naming important or is it isn't? Or is importance in naming only important when you in Nigeria? But when you come to westernized countries, you got to change and anglicize your name. Which is it? You're confusing me. Because I
Hey,
say,
Vonna, is it fair to say we know black people have to code switch? You don't think that will transfer into names? Because that's one of the reasons why my mother named me a particular name. She says it sounds very English and polished. So if I need to
I
go,
know,
yeah.
Kofi, I understand. Listen, man, I understand that you have to do what you need to do when you have to go into certain countries. But I'm saying if you are talking about the importance of a Sikh, see, Mamdani right now didn't change his name to Mo. He didn't change his name to Mark or Bethel or Smith. No. He in fact, in trying to become mayor of New York City, he told the last mayor, say, get my name right. The name is Mamdani. And he made the last mayor, I forget his name now, the white guy, the Italian man now. See, he made him pronounce his name correctly. His name is Mamdani because he understands the importance of his last name. He didn't anglicize his name because people gonna respect you. If you respect yourself, people gonna respect you. This is the reason why some people are drawn towards. Well, in the Caribbean, we are drawn towards a certain thing because Brother Bakari raised an important, very important issue. Most people in the Caribbean don't know who Winston Rodney is. They don't know who he is. If I was to tell you who's Mark Myrie, who's Mark Myrie, most Caribbean people wouldn't know who the hell Mark Myrie is.
Ragamuffin, don't be silly. Put a rubber all
But
in your belly.
but if I say Buju Banton, if I say Burning Spear, everybody know who Burning Spear is. So we in the Caribbean, and this is important, has taken on or gotten we have decided to rename ourselves, practice agency and rename ourselves and define ourselves as who we are. So people gonna make clear when you look at our gravestones, they'll be distinctive because Mark Murray is an English name and Brother Bakari is right. You will be confused that the person in the ground was actually a white person. In fact, in 100 years, Martin Luther King will probably be a white person because he's indistinguishable from anyone else, any other king that exists in America. You could easily make him a white person. But if you say Buju Banton, that is distinctively different from anyone with an English name. Or Burning Spear. That is a connection with Africa that you can't disconnect from that. So it is important in naming, but I'm saying that the brothers who talking about these things need to be consistent. Not because you are in the United States of America or England or Canada. Now naming ain't important. So when I used to go by Kofi, now my name is John. John. Be consistent. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do, what you're practicing, even under pressure. When you're being under pressure or pressured, either you could stand for what you believe and the principles of what you believe, or you could decide to betray them. Now I understand eating is important. I understand living a good life is important. I understand doing the long-term thing is important. But the reality, it comes down to that. Ultimately, either you could be who you are or you're not. Or you're not. And I say to this brother, if you telling us the importance of naming, practice, and consistency, because enough Yorubas in the United States of America going by the title John or Betty or Barbara. Barbara is not a Nigerian name, Yoruba name. Please. But I ain't trying to be critical here. I'm just trying to make clear some things that are unclear. You can't tell me about the importance of something without actually practicing it, even when you're under the gun. If you believe in something for real. But that's just me. That's just my position on it. But like I say, I am not trying to be critical of anyone and any particular position. And sometimes you're in compromising situations where you gotta eat. So I understand that. But I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there, just to be brief.
Appreciate that, Buana. I do have a quick follow up, and I think that was Bakari wanted to speak. I'll let you speak in a second, Bakari. Real quick, the follow up question is: should we make that a practice, like it was mentioned in the chat? Trigabi said, to be fair, I read an article about Asian immigrants in America changing their names to be more English to better assimilate. Lots of others do it. Our people need to stop doing it. But my follow up is: should we have two names? Because like Buana just pointed out, yeah, you gotta live, you gotta eat this, that, and the other, eat in another country under another system. But should we have our African name as well? Like a lot of us have an African name that we use around the internet and stuff. But should we have an African name that we officially have? That's our family's name, but we present when we have to, when in Rome, whatever. Should we do that then? I mean, that's just my follow-up question. But first, Brother Bakari wanted to add something. Then anyone who wants to answer the follow-up question before we go can answer. Go ahead, Bakari.
Hey, when you said what's the guy named Bawana, who you say told him say his name right?
What you talking about, brother?
Magdami.
Oh,
So
Mamdani, yeah.
He's an Indian guy.
Yeah, that's Kofi the mayor.
Yeah, that's
He was raised in
yeah.
Uganda though. He's like Indian, but he was raised in Uganda.
Yeah.
Okay, but the reason I asked that question, right? The reason how these people thought about East Indians, and they said they were the hardest people to break, far as making them leave their culture. Say it didn't make a difference what you did to them; they wouldn't give up their culture. Don't care what you did. Now, they wouldn't put in a position that we were put in. They were oppressed over in India, like the Africans and Nigerians, Ghanaians, the ones that didn't get put on a ship, was oppressed over in the countries where they were from. I'll tell you, man, I even meet some from there. They would tell you their name is James, or I have a biblical name, or their name is they have some Arab name. So I'm just wondering, was it easy for us to forget about our culture under the threat? And I ain't talking about the people that was enslaved, that was having their kids sold here, or their kids was taken from them over there. But I'm talking about even on your land, when you meet some of them, I say, man, what's your African name, dude? I say, shit, we got enough white names, European names here. What's your African name? We want to know. That is my name. I'm sorry, my man. His name was like James. He said that was his name. But some of them use those European names, and you tell them, most of them, you tell, like, look, dude, what's your African name? I want to know about what we from. And then they would give me their name, their tribal name. But it's been some that even from over there have those European first names, and or they gonna have the biblical name, or they gonna have an Arab name. People call it a Muslim, I guess, but that's a religion. Yeah, I guess if they can have a Christian name, you can have a Muslim name, but that's what they do. But naming is important. But like Bawana said, if naming was so important, why did they vote in John, whatever the dude name, whatever Bawana said his name was? But hey, they may have not voted me in. They may have taken it. I'm just saying I don't know. But we do need to work on names, and we do need to be consistent with the naming practice, and having another name like Koku said. We do, because for the most part, Black Americans or African Americans, but especially Black We damn, in all honesty, the majority of us, man, we just dog-skinned white people. In all honesty, over here in the United States, majority of us is just dog-skinned white people, and we're not. Most of us is not looking for a name change, but on here on this panel, we are, and I think we do need to be consistent, and we do need that coach a year to make.
Yeah, we do need two names. To what Trigger Happy is saying, growing up in Queens most of my life, you know the dynamic of Queens. There's a lot of Asians, Hispanics, and I have Chinese friends and Filipino friends. I have them; they have English names, but their last name is obviously a Chinese name. They'll have names like David and John, but the last name would be Chen and Louis, Lou, Lee. You know, so they'll never. I mean, obviously they went through something different, but they are pretty well aware of themselves. And when you ask them, okay, man, what's your Chinese name? You know, they'll laugh, but they'll tell you their Chinese name. So everybody, when you're in white America and you're not classified as white, you know what I'm saying? If your parents know what the game is, like, all right, we're gonna give you a white name, but then this is your name. Like my youngest son, I never call my youngest son by his first name. The only people out of my children that has the literal African name on their birth certificate is my youngest daughter, right? My two youngest sons that have those names, I don't call them by their quote unquote government European name. I don't. Sometimes I'll go to parents teachers and I'll say yes, so Mene, and then they like, oh, who's that? Oh, my fault. That's the name we call him at home. So there's always a middle name. So I mean, I'm supposed to change my son's middle name because I was told that if you give your child a middle name, it's easier to change it than not give the middle name. I was telling my son this like 2-3 days ago. Because he's like, why did you give that? Why did you give you your name if it's not an African name? And I said, well, I don't know really what to name you then. And my wife's cousin, that's also conscious or whatever, she's like, nah, that's the same thing happened to my son. Just give him any name. It'll be easy for you to change it later. So, but yeah, it is important because you have to understand, our children need to understand that in this society we have we have two identities here. We have the identity that we want the white America to perceive, and we have who we are really as people. But I do agree with Juana, like, hey, look, my name is Mondani, love it or leave it, and that's it. And that's also commendable. But if you feel free, but if you feel more comfortable, like, hey, look, I really don't want to do that, that I also understand. You do what you feel is best for you. But I do commend people, especially when we be around white people, and especially when they have like an African name. You see an African name, and it'll have all these long letters and stuff like, oh my gosh, it's so ethnic. Oh my God. But here they are, they're reading German names. German names are ridiculously long. They got like 20 letters to one German name, and they feel like, oh, I'm so cultured, I can read this German name. Like, nah, get out of here. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we have to stop seeing, us through the lenses of white people. Pretty much that's it.
Kofi, one last thing, I gotta be done. Marcus Vincent Thomas, which is all Christian names, he's going by Tariq Allah Nasheed. None of them are English, none of them are Christian, but he seems to be doing very fine. He seems to be doing okay. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand that. He making fine money over where he is at, but he is not using any Christian names. But I'll leave it.
Nice one. That's true. Facts.
Is there any last thoughts on this prompt from anyone? Okay, so what I like to do, I like what Cheryl said in the chat. She said we should ask Black people, well, what's your real name? And I think that's something we should do. I think those of you who have another name, bring your African name, come next week. Let's start that tradition around these parts here. Kofi Street, me, Alma, Bakari, etc. But bring your African name next week. Let's start that as a thing around these parts. But before we leave, this is the last talk for the night. Before we leave, you know what I like to do? I like to give a shout out of anything positive you encountered in your world or in the wider African world, man. Let's do our shout outs this week. Let me just go down the line. Black Steel, what would you like to shout out this week?
Oh man, I really don't have anything to shout out this week, man. It's just I want to shout out the panel for being here. You know, great shout out you, Koku, for being a great host as usual. That's really it. Hope everybody has a great week coming up. Take it easy. Hope to see everybody back next week.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that, Black Steel. Alma, what would you like to shout out this week?
I'll shout out my husband, Taloa Dodo, because he's the one that actually introduced me to you guys, Shoot the Breeze. So yeah.
Oh, your husband is Taloa?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Thanks for making that connection, man. Shout out to Taloa. But go ahead, Alma, go ahead.
No, yeah, that was the only shout out.
Oh, much love for that. Thank you, Taloa, for introducing your lovely wife to us, who comes up on the panel, gives her thoughts and stuff like that. I do appreciate that, Taloa. With that said, Kofi, would you like to shout out this week?
I really don't have anybody, but I want to shout out to all the Black people in America, the Black Americans, anyone that's considered Black in America. I just saw some from Afro Think Tank's cast about some Black guy in a bar, and a whole bunch of white people jumped him, and nothing really is happening. You know, there's a bar that he used to go to all the time and things like that, and he was just questioning the bill, and I heard they stomped the dog shit out of him. I heard he was holding his own, but at the end, you know, I think it was like 1 and 6 white dudes he's fighting in the bar. You know, so you got a lot of Neanderthals, snow beasts here getting emboldened. So, you know, I just want to give a shout out to Black people in America and their resiliency. You know what I'm saying? From the plantation to now, you know, it's a lot of shit, you know, we gotta deal with. And I just want to shout out to Black people, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Kofi. Thanks for being here as well. You, Alma, and Black Steel. Brother Bakari, what would you like to shout out this week?
I want to shout out the month of August, Black Business Month. I want to shout out Black businesses. I'm going to shout out everybody who's going to participate in supporting Black businesses. I'm going to shout out everybody who did not participate, who's not participating in the fake boycott. Let's boycott African braiding shops and Caribbeans and Haitians and Jamaicans, which I thought Jamaica and Haiti was in the Caribbean, but hey, they separated y'all. I'm going to shout out everybody who's not participating in that boycott, and I'm going to shout out all the shout outs I will be shouting out in the future.
One love to you, Brother Bakari. Thanks for that. Last but not least, Juan, what would you like to shout out this week?
Oh, shout out to Cheryl. I didn't know Taloa was your husband. You know, I think Taloa is from Trinidad. I think that shout out to my doubles. You know, my doubles is the best. That doubles is delicious. But shout out to you, Cheryl and Taloa. You know, he's a brilliant brother, very, very intelligent brother. So shout out to you and him. Shout out to Jamaican. Okay. Shout out to shout out to the Epstein files. And I'm loving the Epstein files. The Epstein files are so beautiful. I know Kofi would agree with this. But shout out to the Epstein files. The Epstein files is making something was unclear very clear. And I am eating my popcorn right now. I'm eating my popcorn, enjoying the Epstein files. What's the lady's name? Shout out to Ghislaine Maxwell. I hope that, well, she is not going to be able to testify and tell the truth. But needless to say, shout out specifically to Epstein. The Epstein files is my favorite. It's my favorite. Yeah, even though they doctrine everything. Everything that they can hold out, they doctrine everything. But shout out to Epstein.
No, they shredding it. They shredded everything. No, it doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing to shred.
Oh yeah. No, you hear they released it, but Trump's name has been redacted, and on top of that, they made the Smithsonian remove the exhibit that talks about presidential impeachment. So the president
it's not being
mentioned in the exhibit that talks about. So the only presidents who've been impeached was Johnson, Nixon, and Bill Clinton. So Trump didn't. Man, this is hilarious.
You
Oh
know
man,
he's about to arrest Obama, right? Because on Hillary Clinton, the Russia thing. He's saying it's a hoax
oh
now.
yeah, yes. To my liberal minded brothers, I want y'all to get ready because y'all gonna be very upset when President Trump arrests Obama. So don't be surprised about that. He's gonna get arrested. He's gonna get arrested because this petty president is gonna try to practice petty politics, and because he want him to like have that like what is it, the prison picture. You know when you get arrested, you have the picture. He wants to arrest
But that's
Obama.
true. I know we're talking legalese. What would the indictment be? You just can't arrest somebody. Like you need. I
Oh,
mean, he
because
has his own
he was
Department
working
of
with it.
Justice.
They're gonna make up something. Tulsi Gabbard is gonna make up something, and what's a Bondi? What Bondi? Bondi is gonna make up something. They're gonna make up something. It's against the government. So, like I say, shout out to the Epstein files and to make what was unclear very clear. And get ready. What's gonna happen to Obama? It's gonna be a very unfortunate thing. Very unfortunate. But just hold out. It's only 4 years. It's only 4 years. But shout out to all the brothers and sisters on the panel who've contributed tonight. Very, very good conversations with all of the brothers, Brother Bakari and Black Steel and my sister Cheryl Lees and Kofi. Shout out to all y'all. Y'all been valuable contributions to the panel tonight. And even MG2. MG2 is an elderly gentleman. But when MG2 speaks, you have to be able to pass through a lot of the things that he says because he speaks in a way that is historic and is very well informed, and he's speaking topically, but he's speaking also historically. So to get a lot of the things that what he said, you got to listen very carefully. But shout out to him as well, and all the brothers and sisters. Shout out to all of the listeners who've been listening in and making valuable statements tonight. So that's where I'll end there, and I'll just leave it there. Shout out to everyone.
Appreciate that, Juana and everyone else. Yeah, my shout out is to Julian Brown. That's the young black guy. We talked about him in recent weeks too. Who he's the inventor of plastiline, the gasoline derivative from plastics. He went missing for a little while there, and his family and friends were worried. I don't know if you guys heard that. Family and friends were worried, but he did turn up to be fine. I guess he kind of went into hiding because, as we talked about some weeks ago, he felt like he was being surveilled and stuff like that. But shout out to him that he's still alive and well. Hopefully that brother will find himself somewhere in a black nation somewhere where he could feel a little bit more protected, a little bit more safe while he does the work that he's doing. Also, shout out to all of you guys who join the panel every week. Shout out to Cheryl and her husband. So what I said I haven't seen you in a long time, to Taloa, he knew damn well he's here just about every week himself. His wife is here representing. So shout out to all of you guys, man. Black C, you want to add something?
Oh no, nothing to add.
Oh, okay.
I
man,
just want to add
ahead.
one thing, like my number's in the private chat because I really like to get in contact with you brothers. So just off the show, so we can really build. So my number's in the private chat for anybody who wants it. That's all.
I'm gonna shoot you a text message, Kofi.
All right, cool,
Yeah,
Black Steel. Thanks.
I'll shoot you a message as well. No, but I have your number already. With that said, man, we should be back next week.
Oh yes, Koku. You could give the brothers my number if they want my number as well. But to contact me, it's always you got to use what's the thing, Koku? What we talking? WhatsApp.
Yeah, WhatsApp.
You can call me for free. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I'll do that, man. Plus, we're all on the Discord, so we could exchange those numbers there as well. All right, guys, this has been a great one. Absolutely great show tonight. We'll be back next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Either myself or Jackadero will host. Shout out to Anthony McPhail as well. I saw him in the chat, but he didn't come up. I hope everything is fine with him and his family. And I'll see you guys next week. You guys do take care. Stay black.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.